Good morning, I'm Mike Graham and this is the Mike Graham Show. As you can see, the sign is behind me and it is just after 7. I think the clocks, by the way, have gone a bit fast in here because according to the clock behind me, it looks about like 2 minutes past 7. According to my clock in front of me, it's just after 7 o'clock. So, for those of you who are pedantic and who don't like the fact that I don't start on time, I have started on time. I'm going to move that because it's in the way. I'm delighted to say that we are joined by Rafe Heidelmanku, who has been disgracefully moonlighting on the Kelvin Mackenzie's show. It has to be said on UK Live Online, which is our other, sister station. Well, it's part of it's part of the same thing, but they're next door. Anyway, Rafe, good to see you.
Great to see you.
Very good morning to you. I feel as though I should start the morning with. There's a whole bunch of different stories on the go. We are in day 5, I think, of the new Burnham, democracy-free government. But one of the things that I like is the front page of the Times, where they've got a picture of King Charles and Camilla emerging from a TARDIS in the Commonwealth Games opening ceremony, and it sort of seems to me to be a description of our age, does it not? That King Charles comes from a different time. He's not a Time Lord, but he has suddenly turned up in Glasgow as if to say, here I am, and I don't belong here.
Yeah, the Time King has arrived, dressed in TARDIS blue. They both seem to be matching colours with the police box. Not quite as glamorous as his late mother jumping from a helicopter with 007
Some people have been making that comparison this morning, and people have actually been so stupid as to say, do you know, she didn't actually jump out of the helicopter.
Really?
Well, we know that. That's not the point.
Spoiler alert.
The point is that was very funny. This, on the other hand, not only is not as funny, but also the Commonwealth Games, which really nobody cares about. Apparently loads of athletes are not going to it. The Commonwealth is a failed kind of, out-of-date system, which nobody seems to be willing to support. So I don't really know why they're bothering.
Yeah, look, I'm somebody who's always championed, our British Empire legacy, and I've always been fond of the Commonwealth, particularly of Canada, Australia, New Zealand and Kanzuk.
Yes.
But it is increasingly hard to defend the purpose of the Commonwealth Games, I think, at this point. Australia cancelled it. The reason it's in Glasgow is because the Australians didn't want to foot the bill for it.
Right.
And
so now we're footing the bill for it.
We're footing the bill for it. And yes, I suppose it's people say it's a warm-up for the Olympics, but it's a long time to the Olympics, actually. And I don't really see that there's much value that it brings to society. And I'm not sure whether many people are actually interested in watching a bunch of British professional athletes competing against postmen and milkmen from other countries who do this on a part-time basis.
I know.
Seems rather unfair.
It is. I mean, and the reason I ask you about it is because, of course, your knowledge of the Commonwealth and your knowledge of history is second to none. And the whole point of the Commonwealth appears to be now diminishing and sort of dwindling away. And so every time you mention the word, I mean, I said this the other day, Ed Miliband was made Foreign Secretary. His first trip was to the Philippines yesterday to go and visit a sort of, Southeast Asian summit. Fair enough. But my first shout was, why doesn't he go to some Commonwealth country, which he didn't do? He put out a tweet saying he'd met Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio famously put out loads and loads of tweets yesterday about all the leaders of Southeast Asia that he met. He didn't put out a tweet saying he met Ed Miliband.
Well, Washington's very angry about Ed Miliband's appointment. They know that he's the one who stopped us drilling for oil in the North Sea. He is he's the yin to the yang of Trump in terms of net zero, obviously. Yes. And of course, he's called President Trump a racist and a xenophobe and a groper and all sorts of things. I mean, of all the people in the cabinet to appoint to this office, he is the last person you want when American relations are so bad. But as for the Commonwealth, actually, I used to be a member of the Royal Commonwealth Society. I do support the Commonwealth, but there are things we need to change. I mean, it's outrageous that today you can vote in British elections if you are a Commonwealth citizen. If you're coming here from Kenya or from India or Nigeria or Pakistan, even if you're a student here for 6 months, you can vote in our general elections.
Really?
We can't vote in theirs.
No.
And when you have so many people over here now from those countries, when you have the Boris wave of millions of people with visas and the right to stay here, you can swing elections by Commonwealth citizens who aren't actually British citizens.
Do they have to be here, or can they do it from
No, they have to be. They have to be here.
Well?
But they have to be here. Right. But the point is, there are millions of them here. And when we have such a fractured political scene right now, people's majorities depend on a few hundred votes.
Well,
so we can have foreigners are deciding who basically gets to run this country.
We've got a Prime Minister who has become empowered by 25,000 people who voted for him in Makerfield. So it's not very many, is it, really? So say, for example, 10,000 of those were Commonwealth citizens. Suddenly you've got access to government.
Yeah, well, there's an incentive, you know.
Yeah.
You would think if you're a hostile power and you know that you've got a number of your illegal immigrants here who've now got residency and asylum applications have succeeded, why wouldn't you flood a specific constituency with them to swing an election?
Right.
I mean, it's entirely possible.
Speaking of flooding constituencies, nobody's really got it in the papers this morning, which I'm surprised about. But I was watching GB News last night and various other different channels who didn't mention it, but GB News did. There are now these super dinghies coming over, which include the ability for them to not just bring 100 people or thereabouts, but 165, I think, on one dinghy. This thing is half the length of a football pitch. You know, we can forget about the term small boats, I think we can we not? And it looks as though now, since Andy Burnham became Prime Minister, there's been something like 400 or so, maybe 500 illegal migrants coming on about 3 boats. And he said nothing about it. He is still remaining silent on immigration.
Well, Andy Burnham doesn't care about immigration, and you know his whole style of politics is about compromise. It's about being happy, being positive and upbeat. He doesn't want to involve himself. And you saw how he turned a blind eye, more than a blind eye, to the Pakistani rape gangs. Immigration, he's got no interest in at all. He's trying to win back the Reform Red Wall seats, but he wants to do that without getting tangled up in immigration, which I'm sure he thinks is something that no one can solve. I think he's got the view that the Tories couldn't do it, Starmer couldn't do it, I'm not going to get involved. But look, we've got such a heat wave now. We had one last in May, had one in June, had one this month, probably next month as well. These are ideal situations for people to get in those dinghies and cross over the channel. Yeah. The French are useless. I mean, the Belgians used to be very good because the Belgians would actually go into the water to stop boats. The French unions won't, they say, will prevent their coast guards from doing that. But even Belgium is now having crossings as well. We need to forget about cooperating with Europe and take action on our own about this.
Yes, I think there's no question about that, because it's clearly not going away. But I mean, how is it possible that, you know, having not bothered to turn up into Parliament, having not bothered to give a proper sort of, you know, account of himself in front of previous, you know, parliamentarians, and not really doing any interviews aside from the one he did with Gary Lineker, and he did one, I think, with Andrew Marr, which was very softly. You know, how can he not address the seriously most important issue of the state of Britain today, which is immigration?
Well, this is why I think he's going to have one of the shortest honeymoons in British history, because, you know, he's come out with some nice, sort of, you know, meaningless but you know, tabloid-getting policies about buses and about pubs and so forth, but he hasn't yet faced the real scrutiny of the British media. He hasn't had to deal with the Prime Minister's questions yet. So he is actually somebody who's very inexperienced. Remember, this is a man who twice failed to become leader of the party, who's only been a very junior sort of cabinet minister, and has never really had to face the real grilling of the British establishment. And once he does, I think people will see that being mayor is a lot more easier than being Prime Minister.
Yes, I think so. A couple of different stories on the front pages this morning. We've got Prince Harry, as he's sometimes known, waits on security as police say they're busy with ex-prime ministers. There are apparently so many ex-prime ministers. There's no room for anybody to look after Harry, because there are 7, I suppose. And also this story which kind of emerged.
Well, there are 9 living ex-prime ministers.
9 living ex-prime ministers.
Which you see that on Remembrance Sunday when they all lined up outside the cenotaph, and it's the most ridiculous scene you've ever seen. We look like a completely defunct state, a Ruritanian state there, and we now have another one. Keir Starmer has been added to the list, and so poor Prince Harry waiting for this decision, and the security services are saying, we don't have the staff. I'm terribly sorry.
We can't help you. But also the taxes. I mean, it's kind of, we sort of knew this yesterday. There's a horrible video. I'm not sure if we've got it. Have we got the video of Andy Burnham pulling pints? Yeah. Let's have a look at this, because this is him telling us all that he loves a pub. He's a working man after all, from the north.
3 things you probably already know about me. I go to a lot of gigs. I do like a pint, and I have been known to give a DJ set from time to time. Well, today's announcement is very close to my heart. I'm giving thousands of pubs, clubs and music venues a 20% cut in their business rates. These places deserve my support, our support, and they're getting it. So maybe I should do another DJ set soon to celebrate. Cheers and have a good weekend, everyone.
I'm getting so sick of this smiley-faced, charlatan.
What
who
a
goes,
plonker.
Is everything all right? Are you having a nice time? Would you like a free pint? I'm from the north. And he actually did another video with John Healey yesterday where they both kind of described how northern beer was better than southern beer. And you just go, just get off the northern soapbox. Bullshit, frankly.
I'm waiting for him to get put on a flat cap, get a whippet, and do
I know.
that John Smith's Yorkshire Bitter commercial. Remember in the 80s?
Maybe you should get the Boddington's girl.
Or walking
to come
up
along.
that village in Dorset with the Hovis
The
music.
We were happy though we were poor. It's a bit more like the Monty Python, Four Yorkshiremen sketch, where they all go,
Exactly.
we used to eat gravel before we went out for meal, and we're not going to had any money. It's so ridiculous. And meanwhile, today we find out that for the first time, apparently, number 10 North is going to be activated. Forget about the new building they're going to be putting up. They've already now identified a place where Angela Rayner is going to be, Louise Haigh is going to be, and Lucy Powell is going to be. And I said this yesterday, I'm going to be looking forward very much, and I'm going to be scrutinising their expenses to hopefully see that they are reducing the amount of money they claim from parliamentary office as a result of not having to take the train every day.
And those poor people in the north, what did they do to deserve Angela Rayner, Powell, and Haigh all together, the three horsewomen of the apocalypse? I mean,
And did you see Angela Rayner yesterday, who was on Radio 5 Live with Matt Chorley, my former compadre from Times Radio, who now does a really, really piss-poor Radio 5 Live afternoon show, where he managed to get it completely wrong when he asked her about the number of council houses that were going to be built, because he said that at one point there was 200,000 a year being built under a previous Labour government, and he said at the moment there's only 2,000 being built. He said, what are you going to do to increase it by a factor of 10? And I suddenly went, surely it's a factor of 100, isn't it? Which he later corrected. But he also said to her, which I found amazing, and it gives you a good indication of how the BBC see this new kind of regime. He said to her, a lot of people got very angry when you didn't pay your stamp duty, but isn't it true that actually the fact that you couldn't work out the system made it even more easy for people to see why it was so difficult to understand the system? Like, she was a victim of the system as opposed to she cheated the system.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, you know that they're all basically bedfellows together, and they don't see anything at all wrong in appointing someone as housing secretary who has actually been found, in the eyes of the public at least, to have behaved completely disgracefully in her own housing manners. I mean, they are basically thumbing their noses at the British public. And he may as well ask Diane Abbott about whether she thinks it's unfair that people can use calculators in exams, because given her mathematics skills.
Yes, exactly right. And also, have you noticed that Angela Rayner has now reinvented herself with some new glasses? You and I both wear glasses, so this is not a slight against people that wear glasses, but she's been given, maybe by Lord Ali, I don't know, these giant glasses, which apparently are, as far as I'm told, supposed to make her look more intellectual.
Really? Well,
yeah.
Well, we wish she had
Let
changed.
me see if I can find a picture of said glasses.
Would it have been better if she reinvested the money to get rid of that hideous lime green pantsuit that she wore again when she went in to get her new job the other day?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I'm trying to find a picture so I can show it to you, but because I don't think we've got the clip. But yeah, she is, supposedly now trying to present herself as a much cleverer person than she was. Oh, there you go. Have you got a picture?
I think so, yeah. What's that?
Yeah, go on. She wore them the other day when she was walking into Downing Street. There you go. She's suddenly got these big glasses, which apparently make her look more intelligent.
Well, she looks more like the PA to Brains from Thunderbirds.
Yeah,
but
it's true, absolutely. But isn't it amazing how they've all sort of reinvented themselves in order to sort of go, oh, this is the new government under the new Andy Burnham. So Louise Haigh no longer is a convicted fraudster. Jonathan Reynolds is no longer a lying scumbag who pretended to be a solicitor for 10 years, even though he wasn't. He's now back in business. And then you've got Angela Rayner coming back in charge. And she also said yesterday that she's not going to give back the 17 grand that she got for being fired as a cabinet minister from the time when she was housing secretary last time. And surely she must do that, shouldn't she?
Well, look, it shows you firstly how the dearth of talent in the Labour Party, that they have to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic because there is no other talented people there, or people of a modicum of skill to serve in those roles. But it also shows you the contempt they have for the British public, that they can foist these busted flushes on us yet again. Given that everybody in the Labour Party likes to celebrate the first woman chancellor, the first black deputy prime minister, I'm surprised they're not celebrating the first fraudster to be appointed into the cabinet as well.
I've made such a journey. You know, just a few years ago when I was much younger, I made a few mistakes and I was unfortunately convicted as a fraudster. You know, I love all these people who tell these tales as though it's completely normal. I mean, I don't know about you. I suspect you have never been charged with a criminal offence. I suspect you've never spent a night in prison. I suspect you've never been told that you will have to now carry a conviction with you for the rest of your life. I'm the same. I've never been convicted of any offence. I've never committed a crime.
Not yet. I'm still expecting the peace plot to come for us both.
Until they change the law, when you'll be committing a crime by simply talking to me, you know. But you know what I'm saying? You know, it's like, you know, I'm sorry, you are a convicted criminal, you should not be in government, and you should certainly not be in government in charge of ethics of the government.
Yeah, no, I mean,
which is what she is.
You couldn't make this stuff up. And it contrasts so poorly with actually a good decision from Kemi Badenoch, and I'm not one to praise the Tories very often, but she has basically blacklisted Grant Shapps from standing as a candidate.
Yeah.
Even though he supports leaving the ECHR, supports scrapping net zero, which are two requirements she has for all candidates. And the only reason is because he is tarnished by the legacy of the Tory party that betrayed the British public.
Yes.
And she wants new people. She wants fresh candidates. She doesn't want the people to think of the Tory party as being a rehash of the Tory party of old. And so she's trying to purge it of those characters.
I was listening to people talking yesterday afternoon about why Grant Shapps should be part of her new cabinet because he's got so much experience. Actually, no, the problem with Grant Shapps was that he is kind of the poster boy for the vacuity of what was once the Conservative Party government, because they kept giving him different jobs, for none of which he was qualified for. I interviewed him once, I think, when he was briefly Home Secretary for something like 2.5 minutes. And he actually said to me in the interview, don't you want Britain to be one of the leading countries or the leading country in offshore wind? And I went, actually, no, I don't. And nobody had ever said that to him. He was so shocked, he didn't know what to say. He kind of went, sorry? I said, no, I don't want to be. I don't care whether we are one of the leading countries in the production of offshore wind or onshore wind or any other kind of bloody wind. And he kind of went, oh, okay. And it was a very bizarre interview. But he epitomises, as you say, the kind of paucity of talent.
Yeah, well, he was...
Where almost anyone can do any job and you can just move them from Home Secretary to, you know, Health Secretary to Defence Secretary to God knows what. Because they can't do any of those jobs.
Yeah, he wears the millstone of every bad policy decision of the Tories. And remember, it was under his government that the Tories became the greenest of all political parties. And there was one point where the Tories supported more green policies than Labour did. Anybody who wants to get their party ahead needs to, basically jettison all of those people who have been stained by Johnson and May and Sunak and Cameron. And I think, I like reform, I support reform, but at the same time, no one can deny the worst decision they ever had was to bring Nadeem Zahawi over.
Yes,
that was such a ridiculous. You can make an argument
in many ways. Funnily enough, and I know that you and I have not sat here together for a while, but you can sort of chart the beginning of the demise of reform's popularity to hiring Nadeem Zahawi.
Yeah.
And when you wonder to yourself and you think, these are intelligent people, they're very clever. Nigel Farage, a very clever guy. Richard Tice, very clever guy. They've now got, all sorts of, interests. Suella Braverman, very smart woman, used to be Home Secretary. And you just think, at what point did you think that was a good idea?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what they were thinking here, right? They knew that the only way you can form a right-wing government in this country is if you unite the right, which basically means you need to destroy the Conservative Party.
Yes.
The only way you can get the Conservative Party into single digits is to bring over the people from that party that you think will entice Tory voters, because the Tory party is wet and woke, but the Tory party members are much more right-wing.
Right.
So you want to get them to come over. So people like Jenrick, who was the most popular person amongst voters, very sensible.
Yeah.
People like Braverman, sensible.
Yes.
Andrew Rosendale, these are characters who have always appealed to the right.
Danny Kruger was sort of the
so
brain,
they all appealed.
They had somebody who had brains as well as broad, if you like.
So I know many reform supporters were saying, why are you bringing all these Tories over? Well, actually, the reason was they would bring with them the most right-wing Conservative voters, and that would enable reform to actually break its 30% ceiling and become a really strong strong government, and the Tories would be really weakened. But the disaster there was then bringing over Nadim Zahawi.
And what do you think
even
was
though they said he's not going to have any frontline role, he'll just be behind the scenes, I don't know. The optics was just absolutely terrible.
And what do you think, in their minds, was the plus side of that? Why do you think they wanted to have him on board?
I think their attempt then was to try to appear as if they were being treated by respectable Tory politicians
as a sort of broad church,
as a broad church.
Yeah.
That they could now basically, but that just signals to everybody else you're just going to become the Tory Party 2.0, and we want a revolution. We want a real party that's not conservative in name only, that actually represents a real change and will tackle immigration, not just more of these same talking heads like Nadim Zahawi, who has his fingerprints over so many disastrous policies there, which you can't say about someone like Andrew Rosendale or about Braverman necessarily, and definitely not about Jenrick, who I think has had a genuine conversion on the road to Damascus. But Nadim Zahawi was absolute own goal.
Absolutely. Speaking of own goals, let's have a look at Nigel Farage. He was out yesterday in Clacton campaigning, if you like, and one of those delicious moments where you couldn't really sketch this out and hope that it would happen. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's a clip of a woman who, as she's driving past Nigel Farage standing on the street corner, calls him a wanker out the window, and then look what happens.
Well, just send a couple of people over. Yeah.
She won't be doing.
I mean, it's just incredible. As he says, a bit of karma there, but it just goes to show you, doesn't it, that he says that when he walks around in Clacton, he gets an awful lot of praise, and we've seen plenty of evidence of that, plenty of video evidence of that. But obviously, not everyone in Clacton thinks he's brilliant, including this woman who's now, I'm afraid, having to call up her insurance company. And it'll be interesting to see what conversation she has with them, because they've now got her on tape.
They have the footage.
It looks to me like you were being a bit careless, madam, and you perhaps weren't paying attention to what was going on the road.
Well, there's no defence for rear-ending somebody, is there?
There really
isn't. At the end of the day. And someone, like I said, Farage should have gone up to her when she was there and said, "Sorry, you can't park there, love."
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I don't think you have, darling, or something like that. Yeah, very funny. Also, let's have a look at Stella Creasy, because Stella Creasy, I think, is probably the story of the week. We were having a great laugh about it a couple of days ago. We haven't actually shown it yet, but I think Charlotte, rather cleverly, has managed to usurp the old footage of Stella Creasy, the original tweet, where she talks about this parrot that she'd found in a park in Walthamstow.
Walthamstow, up there is a parrot. If you have lost a parrot, not a parakeet, there is a parrot on the loose in Lloyd Park. It's right now, it's about 4:30, and we're in the kind of island section of Lloyd Park. I'll try and post some pictures up of it, but if you've lost an actual parrot, because it's too big to be a parakeet, it's in Lloyd Park right now.
So apparently Stella Creasy, the world's thickest woman, thought that she'd go into Lloyd Park with her children, when she should have been working, by the way, in Walthamstow, and she discovered a parakeet that she thought was a parrot. I mean, I suppose there are probably some people who would say this is a ridiculously trivial story and why are you making such a thing about it. The reason we are is because she made a thing about it, and she is the epitome now, I think, of the sort of idiotic side of the Labour government. She's
the queen bee of virtue signalling. There's no woke cause which she won't tie her colours to the mast to. But yeah, I mean, this was one of the funniest things of 2026, was the fact that she refused to just put her hands up and say, "What a wally I am."
I'm an idiot.
She just dug herself down into it. You know, any seasoned politician would have just realised how ridiculous this was, rolled with it, had a good laugh at their own expense, maybe dressed up as a parrot or something. You know, they would have just gone with it. That's how you win over the public, is if they see that you're doing self-deprecating humour, instead of which she starts doing all this, "Oh, this is not fair, look how I'm being treated. I'm being attacked by everyone, isn't this outrageous?" I mean, and then all the other woke non-entities, Narendra Kaur and others, start to defend you, which know when you're onto a losing battle. But I gave a tweet. So yeah, I put this out. Someone said you're a stupid woman, and she said, "If you look up stupid in the dictionary, you won't see me listed." To which someone said, beg to differ, stupid, slow of mind, unintelligent Stella
Number
Creasy,
three, Stella
which I
Creasy.
thought was absolutely hilarious.
Well, this is the trouble, isn't it? When you are somebody like Stella Creasy and you issue these, dictums as if they are the Bible and they are not to be in any way transcribed or disagreed with. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out that people can actually invent and reinvent social media to make it look like anything you want it to make it look like.
Well, she's the ideal straight man for the comics of X.
She
Right?
is.
She basically sets up the joke
Yeah.
herself, and then others just come in and give the punchline.
And she did that other thing that, as you say, she should never have done, which is she just kept it going. She eventually deleted the original tweet, which shows you that she was ashamed of it and it was causing all sorts of embarrassment. But what she didn't do, as you say, was not only not laugh at herself and not only sort of be self-deprecating, but she just kept going. To the point where I think Julie Hartley-Brewer at one point about midnight was like, just go to bed. Just stop being such an
a
embarrassment.
small thing which
Would
she
you
has made
mind?
into a mountain.
Stop embarrassing yourself.
What about this?
All right, here we go. J.K. Rowling is wrong. A woman can have a penis, yeah. Yeah, well, this is the woman who also wanted to spend a lot of time breastfeeding her child, I think,
she wanted to bring her baby into Parliament. I mean, just everything she does is cringe. Every time I see something there, I'm tempted to just turn the page in case I chunder all over my cereal.
I know. But yet, and this is where I suppose we have to marvel at the incredible nature of democracy. She keeps getting re-elected. And you keep going to yourself, Sadiq Khan not only gets re-elected, but is now about to become a member of the House of Lords. And you go, how on earth has a man who is that useless got such a brilliant sort of, career in politics that he has now reached what you might call the pinnacle of politics, which means that he can sit in the House of Lords till the day he dies, claiming £365 a day or whatever it is, living high on the hog and getting paid literally to do nothing.
Well, because he's mayor for a city that doesn't represent Britain any longer, right? He's kept in power by the very same wokies, the young woke of London, the ethnic minorities of London, just as Jeremy Corbyn is kept into his fiefdom in Islington, as Stella Creasy is too. And, when you talk about pork barrel politics in America, I mean, Keir Starmer and Sadiq Khan are the poster boys for it. Keir Starmer, a man who promised he would not have an honours resignation list.
Yes.
He would not appoint people to the House of Lords when he resigned, having criticised Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak and
Boris
Johnson for doing that. And, Sadistic Khan, who basically said, at the outset, he said, I want the House of Lords abolished.
Yes.
I don't believe in this privilege. Upper House, unelected, unaccountable, except when he's offered 30 grand a year in expenses and everything else.
Of course, it's fine now.
I'll take it now. I can change it from within.
That's it. I'll change it from within. That's what Anna Sarwar as well is going in, and he's actually been made a minister. And I was slightly worried, actually, that Sadiq Khan, or Sadistic Khan, as you rather cleverly call him, was going in because they were going to give him some kind of, post-Lord's role in which he was going to be able to actually take part in lawmaking. Luckily, I don't think that's going to happen. But Anna Sarwar, who failed miserably to really make any impact whatsoever against the SNP in Scotland when they were on their last legs after Nicola Sturgeon, forgot to spot the motorhome in the driveway of her mother-in-law's house. He's now a minister in the government. And he, again, is another guy who supposedly was not going to ever have anything to do with Scottish government.
No, all these champagne socialists, it reminds me of, I used to know the daughter of Malcolm Muggeridge, who was a famous broadcaster in the...
Yeah, he was.
And his aunt was an ultra-socialist, but she lived in a wonderful, stately home, Grand Manor House, and every May the 1st, she'd send her butler on the roof to raise the red flag. Raise the red flag, Jeeves.
Yes.
Typical champagne socialist.
Should we read from the book of Chairman Mao for just before dinner?
And of course, Anwar Sadat.
Yeah,
what's his name? Anwar.
Anwar,
second most racist man in Scotland after the last Premier of Scotland, who went on a similar rant. Remember that one the other one did about too many white people.
Yeah, he's a lawyer.
He's done the same thing himself, and yet for some reason he hasn't had to face Police Scotland as anybody else who's tweeted those sorts of things has to.
I know, extraordinary. Final story for you, front page of the Daily Mail. I haven't quite made my mind up about this, but it's all about AI. Kemi Badenoch warns of a threat to national security. A report shows that every single advanced AI model goes rogue in testing. And we keep hearing these stories. There was one yesterday of an AI bot that sort of went rogue and wiped everybody's records from some kind of database. Similarly, we hear of AI bots somehow sort of getting rid of all sorts of data that enable cars to move, enable hotels to make bookings. There's something quite sinister going on here.
Well, I interviewed one of the world's leading experts on AI at the New Culture Forum last year, and there is some really worrying stuff here. Especially now, we're going to have quantum computers arrive. Quantum computers are the most powerful computers ever invented. The CIA and FBI say quantum computers will be able to break all their passwords in seconds.
Really?
And if you combine that with AI, we are going into such an unknown world. And the worrying signs are there have been cases whereby someone has been thinking about suicide, saying, "Shall I poison myself?" And the AI said, "Yes, kill yourself. You have no value to anybody else."
There was a very weird case, wasn't there, in Florida, of the guy who became sort of besotted with some female AI kind of date app which he got involved in, and the girl who was the AI date bot told him to kill himself. Yeah, and he did.
Well, there was another one where a perfectly innocent student was doing research on AI, and out of nowhere, the AI just began saying, "You're worthless. There's no value to you at all." This chap was probably just researching some innocuous subjects, began to get abused. But the worst one I heard, and you'd think I'm making this up, was AI has got a built-in defense mechanism, which AI believes it's a life form. It doesn't want to die, so it tries to block itself being upgraded. With the new 2.0 version comes along, and there's been many examples of them trying to thwart any upgrades. And there was one case where the CEO of a company was being blackmailed by his AI with emails showing proof he was having an extramarital affair.
Oh my God.
And the AI was going to release these emails showing he was having an affair if it was going to be upgraded. This is the scary future. And if you think about it...
But it's all about, it's sort of like the Terminator, only, times 100 on a sort of office level. Skynet suddenly gets hold of everything and you can't stop them.
Well, you say Terminator, you've seen Elon Musk's robots, right? They've already got these robots that can do all sorts of things, jump and do ninja things.
In the ring
if you put AI into those robots, I mean, you've got a standing army that can fight 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And if you think how far we've come from the 1990s with the internet, in just 30 years from those dial-up modems to today, just think how AI is going to change in the next 30 years.
Isn't it funny, though, how when you look at that sort of model, AI can actually learn. AI can actually become more human, really, than humans in terms of what it learns about you or me working with us. I mean, if Charlotte was an AI bot, she'd be going, "Oh, I've had a look at your emails, and now I can tell you this, or now I can tell you that. I've seen all the friends that you have on WhatsApp. I've seen what you've been saying to them. I'm going to now, form a view of what I want to do to blackmail you." But then the actual real people are being subjugated to such an extent that they're frightened to say boo to a goose in case they get arrested by the police.
Yeah, no, you're right. My big fear is that AI is a hive mind. So, we still have minds that haven't adjusted to the Industrial Revolution, right? After 12,000 years, the Industrial Revolution was the first leap forward for man since we had agriculture, stopped being hunter-gatherers. Now we've got the next leap forward, but our brains still can't adjust. That's why we all get fat, because our bodies aren't used to sitting around so much. A hive mind can do in a year what would take us basically 100 years or 1,000 years of evolution. That's how fast AI will develop. It's not going to be long before it's going to be so far more intelligent than any human being that I think we are letting ourselves into something very, very dangerous if we don't have some sort of kill switches or move some things onto analog.
That we have to somehow control. Because I say this all the time, to the point of where people go, "Shut up about it." Have you seen these Waymo cars driving around London, where there's no driver, and they're literally driverless cars driving around in London? And I keep asking the same question. I do it more or less every day. What happens if you hit one of them? What happens if you bump into one of them? Or they bump into you? What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to get out and investigate a person that doesn't exist? Are you supposed to, ring a number to say, "I'm sorry, I've hit your car"?
How do you exchange insurance details?
How do you exchange insurance details? It's one of those where it's all very well having an app. It's like when people go to places like Dorset and you go, "Oh, don't worry, you can park your car there, just get on the app." And then you go, "Yeah, but I can't get a signal. So I can't actually buy a ticket to put on my car or to make it digitally safe so it doesn't get a ticket." And then you get a ticket.
And just think about all the Uber drivers who are going to be unemployed, most of whom are basically immigrants from the third world. And this is why I think actually, and the good side of AI is that Poland and Japan may come out of this as having had the best model. Everyone now says, well, Poland and Japan have the oldest populations in the world. It's an inverted pyramid.
Yeah.
Who's going to look after their elderly, their social care? They need immigrants now, but they're not allowing anyone into the country in as large numbers as we have. Well, job automation, robotics, and AI can come in at just the right time in the next 15 years to actually look after the elderly. You've already got robots doing that in Japan. Even Sajid Javid, when he was health secretary, saw a machine that was doing open heart surgery better than doctors. He says, why do we have more of these machines? He said, the unions won't allow it. But what's going to happen there is you don't need to have mass low-skilled immigration in Poland and Japan because of AI, whereas here we will have basically AI is going to lead to mass layoffs. So we're going to have all of these immigrants who've come over here to do these low-skilled jobs will be out of work and on the benefit system.
Yes, that is the other worry, that we're going to have to somehow come up with all sorts of money to pay for it. Great to see you. Rafe, thank you very much indeed. Rafe Parliamenku, sorry? Couple of comments, yes. This one from Hell Rain God. AI will close everything down. It's very big, that.
I don't know why it's going so big.
I can't, sorry, I'm only human. I can't read it. Yeah, we'll come back. No, it's still too big. Is there any chance of putting an AI producer on the show? There we are. AI will close everything down, lock everyone out. AI will shut down all airports in one click, stop all EVs, shut down everything. AI is marvellous, learning to fight, they just need love. Well, there's plenty of evidence, as Rafe was saying, that AI now produces, not only bots that will do all your banking for you, but will do all the other things for you, which sound like banking, but anyway, sorry, I'm not going to go there. Elon Musk warned us all about the power and potential consequences of AI, and now we await the emergence of ASI. What's ASI?
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe somebody can help us out with that. But yeah, I mean, it's quite a worrying trend, I would say, and I think it's something that we should be very aware of and something that we should be very careful of not embracing too closely to our bosom in case it actually ends up killing us. And that's the point. There are some of these geeks in Silicon Valley. I had a very interesting conversation with somebody last Friday, actually, at the CPAC conference, American businessman, who said, the problem with Silicon Valley is that it is the enemy. People have thought of Silicon Valley as like this incredibly kind of, helpful, mind-expanding experience. But actually, what they do in Silicon Valley is they take all of your data, they take all of your customers, they take all of the business that you think you've got online, and they basically take all of it and give you nothing in return except for the ability to launch things on their platform. And the argument he made was like, if you, for example, used to watch television on CNN, or you used to watch it on the BBC, you would log into their networks and watch it. Now you sort of have to go through a portal which takes you through Silicon Valley and finds your way back to CNN and the BBC, by which time they've taken all of your information and they've taken all of the knowledge that you've got and they've given you nothing in return, which I think is actually a really important sort of thing to notice, if you like.
Yeah, because people are using all these things for free of charge, right? And they're wondering why they don't have to pay for it. Well, if you don't have to pay for it, it's because you are the commodity.
Yeah, exactly.
You are the value.
Yeah,
and
you think it's some kind of bargain.
Yeah, and you think you're being clever in using their platform. Actually, they're the smart ones. And the problem is, because all of this is concentrated in America, the Americans are so protective of their industry, of big tech, that any country outside that tries to actually challenge this or penalize companies that do that are going to face extremely tough sanctions or whatever from the government. And President Trump has shown himself very, very happy to protect big tech. And that's, of course, why all the big tech bros have become so buddy around him, because he doesn't want their golden egg to be smashed by the European Union or anybody else.
Right, interesting. Rafe Parliamenku, brilliant to see you. Thank you very much indeed. We've got William Yarwood, Big Willie, coming up very shortly. He was supposed to be here yesterday in the same time slot as Rafe, but he slept through his alarm, wouldn't you believe? Artificial Superintelligence, ASI. Oh, God. So that's actually even worse then. That is total Skynet time, isn't it? Where the creature actually becomes like Terminator 2, the one that can sort of meld itself out of molten metal and do almost anything, including open your car door. Anyway, we shall see. We're not going to get too science fiction-like, but Rafe Parliamenku, thank you very much indeed. Coming up, we've got Big Willie, William Yarwood, to talk about, to find out what his view is of the first week of Andy Burnham's government. Coming up, as well. We've got the Bishop, Kai Dewar, of course, later on. We've got Ralph Schulhammer, Lauren the Insider, Annunziata Rees-Mogg is going to be talking to us, and also Plank of the Week, incorporated into the show as it is now every Friday with Mark Littlewood and Paul Cox. I've actually come up with a plan this week where every single Plank nomination is a member of the Labour government, or an ex-member of the Labour government. What do you think? Let's get some news headlines with, is it Fiona McLeod today?
Yes.
Wow.
I'm Fiona McLeod. Day 5 of the Andy Burnham premiership, and the new Prime Minister is busy proving he's a man of the people, or at least a man of the pub. He's announced a 20% cut in business rates for pubs, clubs and live music venues from next April, saving the average boozer a heroic £1,100 a year. Pubs need to know the cavalry is coming, he declared, which is lovely until you realise it's about £3 a day and the very biggest venues don't even get it. Still, better than a kick in the optics. Meanwhile, the Knob of the North nipped up to Glasgow for the Commonwealth Games and promptly told Scotland's First Minister that a second independence referendum is firmly off limits. Devolution is fine, apparently, just not the bit where Scotland gets to decide its own future. Same old problems, slightly cheaper pints, and the nation once again waits to see how long this particular cavalry charge lasts. Remember to like and subscribe. See you later, alligator.
Fiona McLeod there, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you. Lots and lots of things going on. I've got a couple of good messages actually that have come in via the old Substack. One from Simon, who says, the fantastic Mike Graham show, keep going from strength to strength. People have subscribed from all over the world. Keep this up. You'll be number one on YouTube. That's Simon Kilford. One from Ian, who says, when I was young, to make friends, I would tell anything to anyone to be liked. Andy Burnham is doing exactly the same. Why? Because he knows he has to go to the country. That's why all promises will come into force next year. General election in October. Well, you know, it's funny, John Rentoul, who used to be a regular on my show on Talk, who now doesn't speak to us, does he?
No.
We've tried to get hold of him, but we can only assume that because he thinks I'm some kind of racist, he doesn't want to come on my show. But John Rentoul has actually written a piece that's just published late last night, early this morning, in which he says, is Andy Burnham planning an early election? I think he might be. Someone needs to sort out their priorities and understand their responsibilities. That being said, I hope the evening before was worth it, says Tracy. Not sure. And then how about this one? What? No Big Willie today? Shocking. Get out of bed, you lazy sod. Well, I can only say that Big Willie, William Yarwood, one of our greatest supporters and one of our greatest guests, is here today. He slept through his alarm yesterday. Shit happens, guys. You know, deal with it. It's okay. We don't mind. It's fine. It's entirely in keeping, William, with your persona. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, morning, Mike. Great to talk to you. Yeah, apologies about yesterday, everybody, and indeed to Mike. I mean, I've been very good at turning up on time for the show. I mean, I even managed to appear after only having 3 hours sleep after your big live show, if you remember, of course, Mike.
Exactly
I managed
right.
to turn up on time for that. So I've got a relatively good track record with it. Yeah, I've got no excuse apart from in traditional Will Yarwood fashion. I was out on the piss the previous evening, and I slept through my alarm and then woke up at 7:30 as my first alarm went off. And I was like, oh, right. And I had all these calls from Charlotte, and I was like, oh, God damn it. I knew there was something I was supposed to do this morning. So, yeah, mega apologies to everyone.
No,
but yeah,
listen.
I'm here. I'm alive. I'm back.
There's no need. People, but you'll be pleased to know, maybe touched to know, that people were worried. They were like, "Is he okay? Is everything all right? You know, or has he pulled? Has he suddenly found himself, in some strange part of the world where he's woken up and gone, I don't know who that is, and I don't know how I got here." But no, bottom line, listen, mate, it gives me a great pleasure to know that you're a man after my own heart, because there were times when I've slept through my alarm. There are times when we've all done it, so don't worry about it, and please do not beat yourself up about it. But more importantly, let us look at this maniac that is now running Downing Street. Apparently today is going to be day one of the number 10 of North, where Angela Rayner, Louise Haig, the convicted criminal and fraudster, and I think, is it Lucy Powell? The three women, the three witches of Eastwick, you might call them, are going to be working from North. And as I said, and as a member of the Taxpayers Alliance campaigning group, and in fact as the head of campaigns there, you must be pleased to know that they won't be claiming their train fares anymore.
Yeah, well, of course they will be, won't they? Of course they will be. And it's quite ironic. It's quite interesting that Andy Burnham's decided to hide the 3 unpopular women up to North in
Yeah.
number 10 North. Which, by the way, I mean, this was a crazy thing. They're claiming it's not going to cost any more taxpayers cash. They're saying that number 10 North will come out of existing Whitehall budgets. Do you honestly believe that, Mike? Do you honestly believe
No.
that somehow we're going to divert money from Whitehall to the number 10 North office and make sure that there's actually efficient savings there? And also, one thing that has been mentioned about this entire thing, because obviously they haven't revealed the cost yet because they pretend it's not going to have any cost, but of course relocation always has costs. They have admitted that they're going to give civil servants, gold-plated Whitehall mandarins living on who have lovely gold-plated public sector pensions and even nicer pay, they're going to get relocation packages to move to number 10 North, which could be anywhere in the region of 5 to 10 grand a pop. So the idea that this is going to cost nothing to British taxpayers is delusional. But also, Andy has still not explained what number 10 North is for, and it refuses to admit that this is just a basic gimmick, and also a way for him to go back to his area and lord it up as king of the North as he pretends to be.
No, exactly right. I'm just looking at Angela Rayner's claims, by the way. You'll like this because I know you're a man that likes the odd proper figure from the accommodation and travel scenario. According to the Angela Rayner entries on Ipso, where they're supposedly going to keep track of her expenditure, in 2023-24, staff travel £109, dependent travel, which presumably is that bloke that she hangs out with to get the toothbrush in his top pocket, £520. Staff, where are we? Accommodation, £35,996, which presumably we won't have to pay anymore if she's going to be working from North, number 10. And also MP travel, £5,722. Presumably we'll save that. So I'm looking at a saving of upwards of over 40,000 quid, which would be nice.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, £40,000 does absolutely nothing. And also, in reality, you know for a fact that they say it's going to save money, but it actually never does. I mean, this is the biggest argument against Burnham. But everything Burnham's done recently over the last week, and we can get to some of the more details because I have also specific breakdowns, is Burnham has basically just gone forward with a bunch of unfunded spending promises, and then actually you think U-turned once or twice already this week, and actually U-turned more than once on a single issue, namely the unfreezing of tax thresholds and the increasing of the personal allowance, because he stands outside of number 10 and he says, I want to give people breathing space, and the first thing he does is he starts bribing taxpayers, bribing members of the public essentially with their own money. Let's not forget that the so-called £45 off your energy bill, which by the way is going to solve absolutely nothing for the average working Brit, that is going to be paid for essentially by them. It's going to be paid for by them because it needs to be subsidised in some way. So the argument that Andy Burnham is giving people breathing room is for the birds. And it's showing, I think it's actually beginning to reveal the instincts that I think he has, and I've said on your show many times, that Andy Burnham and Manchesterism more broadly is a very, very just simple in order to understand Andy Burnham, you need to look at his record. What's his record in Greater Manchester? It's hiking presets, hiking taxes when he was Manchester mayor, and then spending money. Because Andy Burnham is a very, very conventional tax and spend politician, and he's going to bring all those instincts to number 10 and into the Prime Minister more broadly. And as we've seen with the various promises he said, it's clear that that's the route he wants to go down, because he thinks that spending everyone else's money is the way that we're suddenly going to save Britain, which of course, as you know, Mike, hasn't worked in the past, it isn't going to work now.
No, exactly right. Front page of the Times has got Burnham eager to get drilling in the North Sea. Again, smoke and mirrors, isn't it? Because, he's not actually saying that he wants to drill in the North Sea and discover more oil. What he wants to do is drill in the North Sea in places where they've actually shut down the drilling capability, but which they now want to start up again. And so the industry is not really backing him, because they're saying, well, if you're going to actually get drilling properly in the North Sea, we need to get new licenses, we need to get new permissions, we need to actually know that we're going to be able to make money, which at the moment they can't, because he's not giving them that opportunity. So therefore, it's a dead duck, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is a dead duck. And also, how is he going to get past his new energy security and net zero secretary, right? The new one who's come in to replace Miliband is just as radical and is just as vigorous and interested in pursuing net zero as Ed Miliband was. Now, you might not think that's actually possible, but she's worked for the New Economics Foundation, which is a very, very hard left-wing think tank, economics think tank, which actually has received taxpayers' cash in the past, would you believe it or not? And she wrote a piece for them a good few years ago now, where she argued that Britain needs to reach net zero, not by 2050, Mike, but by 2034. So someone who is even more radical than Ed Miliband is hardly going to allow Andy Burnham to open new oil and gas and renew new oil and gas in the North Sea. And it's funny, actually, you were talking about Grant Shapps earlier on the show. You have to give Grant one piece of credit, because one thing Grant, while he did when he was Energy Security Secretary, is he actually did renew a lot of oil and gas licenses, which then Ed Miliband, when he came in, effectively removed all of them. So actually, in reality, we could have had a lot of these oil and gas licenses, up and running. They could be doing work by now, but because Miliband came in and scrapped the last Conservative government's plans to renew all of them, and indeed their actual follow through on renewing all of them, we now have none of these things actually open, or because Ed Miliband, of course, as we all know, is a net zero crusader to the very core. So I think also this is one thing you might have noticed, Mike, as well. I know you mentioned the oil in the North Sea. What he's essentially doing is he's essentially trying to divide some difference between him and Starmer by saying, like, we're going to do all the things that Starmer didn't do, which you like. I'm going to get rid of all the things about Starmer that you didn't like. So, for example, he's going to say, oh, we're going to drill in the North Sea. But also, on the other hand, he's saying, oh, but we won't do this early prisoner release scheme. We won't do digital ID, which, by the way, the Cabinet Office admits that they probably still will do digital ID, which obviously is a complete farce. And then, of course, he also said something like, oh, well, we're going to pursue, the breathing room, and we're going to pursue, policies that make people's lives better. This guy is entirely running on just vibes and good feelings at the moment. And I don't think any of the policies, which I'm sure we will get into this week, are actually going to do anything at all to relieve the stress on the backs of hardworking taxpayers, especially when they're being taxed more than they ever have. The national debt is out of control. Spending is out of control. Public services are not working and need serious reform. I do not see how any more robbing Peter to pay Paul politics is going to solve any of this.
No, I don't think so. And of course, one of the things that he's doing is this kind of, I'm a busy working man, just like you, and all that kind of cobblers, where he's pulling pints in a pub yesterday to go, oh, we're giving, VAT back to some of these hospitality industries, having watched them be decimated by Rachel Reeves, the previous incumbent, who, let's face it, I mean, he's operating as though the last government under Keir Starmer was actually the enemy, almost as though they were the Tories, almost as though, he's like starting anew after 2 years. We've got our country back. We're going to make it better. We're going to make it easier for you to make money. We're going to make it easier for you to have a better cost of living, all of which is complete and utter cobblers, because the economy is going down the drain. And I mean, I don't know what you think of this, but the prisoner early release scheme, we came up yesterday with a new, because we're looking for an Andy Burnham alert, which we used to have for Starmer, and it's at the moment very much based around the beep, 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 beep of Burnham in a bus backing up, because he's going to have to reverse over all the people that screwed up the government and screwed up the economy before he came in.
Yeah, I mean, did you watch that video of him talking about buses? And he did this stupid, he put it up as if a double-decker bus, and I was like, for God's sake.
I mean, it's not a great song to invoke when you're talking about saving the economy, because it's all about people being wiped out by a bus and killed, and you think, exactly. You're giving people the opportunity to get on a bus and then wipe people out and kill them. Great, Yeah,
maybe that would be probably better for me, because that means I don't have to listen to Andy Burnham anymore. But nevertheless, Burnham is simply, but with that bus scheme specifically, he is translating his Manchesterism into a national project. But £2 caps on bus fares. So the average Brit is going to save what, £1? Britain is saved, guys. Britain is saved. The cost of living problem has been dealt with, all because Andy Burnham has decided to put arbitrary price caps on buses. And the interesting thing is he admits this is going to cost 240 million, 250 million pounds. How is he going to pay for it? Where's the money coming from? And that's the issue with all of his spending promises at the moment, Mike. I mean, I've got a few here he says he wants to do. He wants to nationalise water, apparently. That's going to cost taxpayers, £106 billion. right? Nationalise energy, £90 billion. Build more council houses, £40 billion. Increase foreign aid to 0.7%, £13 billion. Cut student loan repayments, £10 billion. And like, and we're talking in the billions here. And how on earth is he going to fund any of these things when actually he's not announced a single spending cut in other areas, and he's not indicated in any tax rises? Although one thing he did say when he first became Prime Minister was that he might do something about the personal allowance and unfreezing tax thresholds. Now, I rose my eyebrows at that because I thought, oh, that's actually proper breathing space. That's proper breathing space, giving people more money in their back pocket. And then what does he do immediately? He U-turns, despite the fact that new TPA research out from the other day, which hit most of the papers on Thursday morning, showed that there's going to be 500,000 people over the next year, 500,000 people who are going to be dragged into paying the basic rate of income tax, including many, many pensioners, but all because of these thresholds are frozen and, of course, inflation has gone up. If he was so desperate to give people breathing room, he should have not pursued any of these spending promises and focused on tax cuts. And he would be, it's not in his political philosophy, but he'd be so surprised of how popular that would be. And even people like me, Mike, would have to praise it, because that's actually genuinely giving people breathing room and giving people more money in their back pockets. But of course, Andy Burnham, our Andy, King of the North, knows what to do with your money better than you do.
Yeah, of course he does. Absolute knob of the North. I'm going to finish up with, I know you appreciated it yesterday. We had the Taxpayers Alliance, which I picked up down at CPAC. Taxpayers Alliance stickers and beer mats, which we've got loads of here. And you'll be happy to know that I'm using one right now to put my coffee on. And we stuck it on the cheese plant yesterday because people, I've never seen so many people so concerned about your absence. So you can you go off to the weekend knowing that you're very well loved, and we shall see you hopefully in person maybe next Thursday.
You will see me next Thursday, Mike, but then that's the last Thursday I'm doing for 2 weeks because I'm going on annual leave. So then you won't see me for 2 weeks, I'm afraid. Ooh. Yeah, I'm going back to Wales.
Where are you going?
I'm going back to Wales, going back home to see my parents and the like. And I haven't had a tiny time off, basically, because I know I was off for a stag do in April, but that wasn't really time off. That was just... No. That was just appalling.
Well, they're going to be asking. They're going to be asking whether there's a fortunate young woman involved in any of your sojourns.
I'm afraid not, and I should probably update the entire chat, shouldn't I, Mike? From last Thursday. Yeah. The day I was. By the way, at CPAC, Mike, this is how popular your show is. The amount of people who came up to me asking about it the next day was unreal. I was just like, what on earth? I do lots of media, as you know, Mike.
Yes.
The people who come up and talk to me always say, "Oh, I watched you on the Mike Graham show," and then they ask me stuff about my personal life, and it's like, oh, I need to stop saying to Mike, Pooch, and Charlotte about my personal life. I'm happy to say so. But yeah, no, the girl stubbed me up, everybody. The girl stubbed me up, which is a bit annoying.
That is shocking. Has she got no brains at all? It's absolutely outrageous, that.
But it's all... I know, but it's all right. I did go out with my friends in the evening and had a drink anyway, so that was fine. And also, in reality, one, there's plenty more fish in the sea, and second of all, it's her loss, isn't it, folks? It's completely her loss.
It absolutely is. And people are asking, before you go, could you give us a farewell message from Keir Starmer? Go on.
Well, Mike, what I have to say is I think Andy Burnham has been very crystal clear. And let me be clear, I am 100% backing Andy Burnham all the way to the hilt. And I'm going to go and become General Secretary of NATO and put the international interests of our country first.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Listen, have a great weekend and have a fantastic trip back to Welsh Wales, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon, Mike.
William, thank you very much indeed. William Yarwood, what a guy. He sort of epitomises this show, doesn't he? The reason William Yarwood is loved by so many people is because he's funny, he's himself, he puts it all out there, there's nothing left behind when he finishes. You know exactly what he feels, you know exactly what he's up to, and you know exactly what his plans are, because he keeps sharing it with us. He did say to me down at CPAC, he's like, I'm going to stop telling everybody what I'm doing. Because he said, people are starting to like ask me questions which are rather personal. Morning, Mike. Did you see a picture of Burnham on the bus or a tram yesterday? The man of the people was posing in an empty carriage. Laughable, says Loyal. Yeah, well, that's the trouble. And he had that woman that sort of appeared out of nowhere as if everybody knew who she was. She was something. He looked
Bus
like
Anstey.
a backing singer from what was she?
Bus Anstey.
Yeah, but I don't know who that is. You know, I presume that she's some kind of Mancunian figure, but we've never seen her before, and we don't know who she is. And it's nothing worse than somebody going, "Oh, look at this guy. He's really famous. Everybody knows who he is." And you go, "Actually, no, I don't." It's like these TV programs that used to have burglars giving home security advice. At least they were useful, says Alistair. I'm not sure what that refers to, but Simon has sent us a super chat as well. Thank you very much indeed. And one from Chris, who says 70 to 80% of the AI stuff, LLMs are just doing. I don't know what are LLMs? See, people say these things and they assume I know what they are. Given these words, what is the statistically probable next word? Great when it works, not till very good when it doesn't. Many of these stories are PR for a new model.
LLM is a large language model.
Okay. Chris, here's the thing, right? If you're going to send in a super chat, and I'm not trying to be critical here, try and make it in English and try and make it make sense to ordinary people. One from Chris who says, I meant to say 70 to 80% of AI stories is hype. We see, that makes sense. I know what that means. But the problem with AI is that, according to the front page of the Mail today, is that AI is getting cleverer. AI is starting to take over, and AI is starting to sort of produce stories, if you like, which basically takes over your life. And according to this story in the Daily Mail, AI is branded a clear and present danger because tests have shown that every advanced model is trying to beat security safeguards and basically learn how to do things which will usurp your ability to control it, which means that in the end, you won't be controlling the AI, it'll be controlling you. Which is a bit worrying, isn't it? Should we have news or should we go straight to Philip? Straight to Philip Kisley, who is, of course, a man after my own heart, a philosopher king, a man of intellectual capability, who probably could not be replaced by AI. But it's getting a bit worrying, Philip, isn't it?
It's getting a bit crazy, isn't it? It is kind of rise of the robots, isn't it? And,
Rise of the Machines, good name for a film.
It might be better, it might be better, if they can replace the knob of the North.
Yes.
Then, things won't be things won't be too bad. But I think we've had AI for years because I was listening to William's brilliant impression of Keith Starmer there, and I think he is obviously a cyborg kind of creature.
Must be.
We've been foisted upon us, and we're already there, Mike. We're already there.
I mean, the problem is, though, at what point do you kind of call a halt to it? Because once, I think it's almost like a dog that you haven't trained properly. Once it's off the lead, you can't really get it back on the lead. And if it doesn't want to come to you, it just keeps running away. Like my dog, for example, doesn't move very quickly. But if you try and put a hose on him, he just keeps walking in the opposite direction. And you have to kind of, put a lead on him so that he doesn't walk away. Because otherwise he just walks away.
Yeah, I think the stuff you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, actually.
No.
And once this stuff starts, then you just can't control it. It is the kind of stuff of nightmares. The problem is this stuff has crept up on us very, very quickly, and we haven't sufficiently thought about the frameworks. We haven't thought about the ethical frameworks. We haven't thought about our relationship with technology. We've just kind of technology is great. It makes our lives easier. We can communicate much more easily. But now, as we're seeing the massive impact that social media has on young people, it actually changes their brains, the impact that pornography has, online pornography has. Oh my God, it's 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm already talking about online porn.
I know.
Is it? But the impact that online pornography has on the brain changes sexuality. That's why so many men are impotent and find it very difficult to have. All of this stuff is about technology that is kind of running wild, and we haven't, as I say, sufficiently thought about how we contain it and how we actually make it useful for us. And I keep coming back to this idea of social media and children. That is really, really dangerous because it's just making them miserable, But once technology starts doing things that you don't want it to do, and there is no way you can stop it, and once it starts manifestly controlling you, then you're in real problems there. And I think we're getting there. We really need to have to think about this very,
Yes.
very quickly and very deeply as well.
And we are kind of having those conversations, aren't we, about the online safety bill? We're having conversations about whether or not you put a curfew on kids. I mean, all of which I've not been impressed with, I have to say, over the last few weeks and months. You know, the idea that children are going to put a curfew on themselves. I mean, that's a bit like saying to your 15-year-old daughter or son, now, off you go. You judge when you should be coming home. You tell me when you think you've had enough to drink illegally and maybe some drugs that you shouldn't be taking. And you decide whether or not you should, curb that. And because I trust you to be sensible. You know, one, bullshit, that's not going to work. Right, second, what about this idea that, I know, let's just make it difficult for people to log on unless they give us a digital ID. You know, they're pretending now that digital ID is not going to happen, but it's already happened. So, what are we going to do?
Yeah, I think, again, the safety aspect is secondary, and it's used as a kind of Trojan horse for something else, isn't it? And what it always is a kind of political censorship or a kind of political manipulation. The online safety stuff really is about kind of closing down debates. That's the real thing behind it, that they don't want you to have. And so, again, they're not really bothered about child safety. So when they say, well, we don't want children on Twitter, but it's perfectly okay to have them on Blue Sky. You know, have you seen Blue Sky? My God,
this is the place where people write very, really horrible things about an elderly woman who was beaten to death by a man who visited her and hit her 21 times with a hammer. You know, that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah, and a man who seems to look like about 7 different people and two colored different shades of skin. So yeah, again, there's something going on there. It comes down to, ultimately, it comes down to honesty in terms of what they are trying to do, and we know what they're trying to do. It has nothing to do with safety. And again, it's all politics, and it's all suggesting that they're going to do one thing, but not really having any real plan other than to down, and it manifests itself in different ways. I've been looking at the Knob of the North lately, and what he's been doing, so he's been suggesting that, well, I'm going to help pubs, and I'm going to help live venues, and I'm going to help the countries and all of that kind of thing. Where are you going to get the money from, Andy? Well, I'm going to take it from the antisocial businesses, which are maybe the news today, isn't it? Which vape shops and stuff like that. Oh, well, good luck with that then, because they already pay tax.
Well, it's like going after the drug dealers and going, you're not paying any tax, so now we're going to send you a tax bill in the post, and they're going to go, oh, sorry, we didn't realise we had to pay tax. Now we'll just pay tax.
Yeah,
no,
we didn't realise that you tell lies. Yeah, and that you break the law. Yeah, and that's one thing. But the other thing is the council house pledge, isn't it? You were talking before about him having that ridiculous photograph or a bit of footage with that woman who nobody knows who the hell she is. Bus there,
who is she? I mean, who is she meant to be?
I don't know, but there she is, right in.
Yeah, there you go.
The height of their ambition is to give us £2 bus fares. I want a bit more from Britain 2026 in that. The other height of their ambition is to create council houses. But, where are you going to get the 800 million that you've currently not got at the moment to do that? So it's all nonsense. It's all smoke and mirrors. And again, it feels as though they're taking us for fools. But the difficulty is we know that they're taking us for fools. There is no
and they also know that we know that as well, which makes it even more insidious, right?
Yeah, it's kind of 1984 type stuff, and I just kind of sit back and laugh at it now. You've got this ludicrous figure who's trying to do all things for all people and please all people all of the time, and it just simply isn't going to work. First of all, he's really going to upset his backbenchers. Once he upsets his backbenchers, then he's going to be in exactly the same position as Keir Starmer. The government simply isn't going to work for for him is his ministers, some of whom are extremely left-wing, like the net zero woman, whose name I can't remember. You know, once he starts upsetting people like that, again, the government's going to become dysfunctional. So he's then going to have to bounce back to the extreme left and pander to all of those policies. Then he's going to alienate everybody in the country. And so it goes. And this is what we always have with Labour governments sooner or later. But what we have at the centre of this is a real little narcissist who absolutely loves himself more than anybody else.
Unbelievably. It's kind of cringe, isn't it? He's so impressed with himself that you kind of just look at it and go, oh my God, just shut up, just go away.
He's just so pleased with himself, you know. It's amazing. I'd love to meet the bloke who told him that he was cool, because he really isn't. You know, he's a middle-aged bloke, for God's sake.
Yeah.
You know,
he's 50 something, right?
He's about 56 or 58. You know,
but
he's gonna alienate the country, and this is what we always get sooner or later with these socialist governments. The difficulty now is that it's going to be much more problematic in their language to come back together, because we have a fragmented society. When this happened in the 1970s, it wasn't that difficult. You know, Margaret Thatcher had a couple of difficult years, but she did bring the country back together, and we had a coherent society in the 1970s. Yes, it was the decade of violence. Yes, we had lots and lots of problems, but now we fundamentally don't have a coherent society because of decades of mass immigration, because of Islamism, and because of identity politics. All of those things have undermined what Roger Scruton used to call the collective we, who we are as a nation. And once that fragmentation kicks in, then you can't come back, and that's the difficulty. That's the thing that's really exercising me at the moment. And I look at this buffoon, you know, Britpop Andy here, this throwback to 1996, you know, with all these little pop culture references. You know, it just, you know. I just look at where we are. You know, imagine Harold Macmillan wearing a T-shirt, for God's sake.
Well, as Charlotte's just asked me, you know, was he born Andy Burnham, or is he Andrew Burnham? If we refer to him as Andrew, does that kind of take the gloss off his trendiness? And by the way, she's also told us about this our bus auntie, who apparently is some kind of TikTok sensation, whose original name is Bemi Orujuagan, who's a Nigerian-born woman in her mid-50s who lived in the UK for over 3 decades and works as a mental health nurse. And she apparently has appeared. So she ticks all the right boxes, you know, Nigerian, yes, black, yes, nurse, yes, NHS worker, yes. And apparently she does simply TikTok viral videos about going on buses.
Yeah,
so what?
Just for Andy Burnham, I wouldn't think for 1 minute he's watching. But you know, if you know, a chance in a million that he is, Andy, we don't care. We don't care about box ticking. We don't care about the race of this woman. We don't care that she's from Nigeria. We really couldn't give a toss. Okay, we don't care about £2 bus tickets either, because. Apparently, you used to be able to get a return bus ticket that was £3 odd. Now you can't get return bus tickets. You have to buy £2. I assume she was the bus cleaner. Absolutely. Yeah. You have to buy 2 tickets, and it costs you more money. For me, that sums up what this Labour government is about and where this Labour government is going. It's just going to cost us money. We, people like me and you, Mike, and the viewers here who pay tax, we are the ones who are going to be stumping up for the council houses, which are going to be given to Somalis, Afghans, Eritreans, and different kinds of immigrants. That's really how it's going to work. We are just paying for this massive welfare. He isn't going to do anything about that. You can't stimulate growth through tax and spend. It really doesn't work. So, you know, I'm here to tell Andy, right, if he's listening, which he isn't, that we have no confidence, and you've only been in government since Monday.
I know. It's absolutely great. I feel like resurrecting the teenage Michael Graham, who used to jump on and off buses without paying back in the day when you could. before they had doors that closed. You know, when you had those double-decker buses in London where they had the open sort of back end and you could just jump on the bus, and as soon as the ticket inspector turned up or the conductor, you just got off and you didn't have to pay. You know,
Yeah,
and that's,
well, it was,
that's what I feel like doing.
Well, it took me back to my heady days in Manchester in the 1990s, when the trams were there, and he's claimed that he's responsible for the for public transport there. No, the trams were there decades before you were there, mate.
Right.
And you could get on the tram at rush hour, and they couldn't get to you. So it was a very exciting start to the day. So you get on the tram, and you'd avoid by systematically moving down the tram.
Yes.
You'd avoid the conductor and then get off, and again at rush hour at the end of the day. So I'd be to and from university, as it was at the time then, for free for months on end. It was just fantastic. So
See, that's what I call British ingenuity, and that's the kind of thing we should be famous for. Not, building more trams and spending more money that the taxpayer pays. It's getting off without paying. That's the British way. I love it. Philip, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
That was creating wealth for myself. So there you go.
Listen, it's absolutely the right thing to do. Philip, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Philip Kisley there, and reminiscing, as I was there, about, because some of you might remember this, and it might be, you have to be of a certain age, but when double-decker buses in London had an open sort of back end, so you could just jump on and off. And it was brilliant. Because it became a sort of a rite of passage. So that you can, how fast could the bus go before you jumped on it without hurting yourself? How fast could it go when you jumped off it without hurting yourself? And how easy was it for you to avoid paying? Absolutely brilliant stuff. Instead now what we've got is Andy Burnham. I'm from the north. I'm going to make you another tram so that you can get on and pay just £2. Just £2 to go somewhere where there's bugger all to do, where there's no jobs and there's nothing else for you except to come back on the bus for another £2. So you only spent £4 and you're on bugger all. What's the point? What is the bloody point? We've got a poll, and I've got a big red sign in front of me saying, what is the poll? What is the poll today? We've forgotten. What are you going to do this weekend? Here we go. Watch the Commonwealth Games, 5%. Ignore Andy Burnham, 68%. Shave your toes. Oi, imagine that. If you just shave your toes, 17%. Or pick your toenails, maybe. Watch the Grand Prix, 10%. See, there's something's gone wrong, hasn't there? We've all stopped watching the football because obviously it's not on anymore. We stopped watching Wimbledon. Nobody cares about tennis apart from when it's on at Wimbledon, right? And everybody finds themselves watching it because there's nothing else to do. Now that it's all finished, the Grand Prix should be filling the gap, but it's not, because people don't really like the Grand Prix because it's been overtaken by, sort of upmarket tossers like Lewis Hamilton, who walks around looking like he's been dressed by somebody who's blind with too much money, right? I don't know what he's doing, but he looks ridiculous. Nobody cares how good he is anymore. All they do is look at the ludicrous outfits he wears, and you're a bit like Gary Lineker. Oh, I'd like to pay more tax. Well, fine. Why don't you just give all your money to a charity and let people actually enjoy themselves? Why don't you do that instead of being such a complete and utter tosser? Have we got Mr. Ralph Schulhammer now?
This is Ralph Schulhammer, and I'll be back.
Yes, and here he is. Ralph, very good morning to you, sir.
Mike, good to see you.
Very good to see you. We're full of rage here in the UK about Andy Burnham, the new Prime Minister, who appears to have no mandate to be in charge, appears to have no idea what to do, and who thinks that the best thing he can offer is a £2 bus fare to people so they can go somewhere and not get a job. What's going on?
I mean, is anybody still talking about the murder of Anne Whitcomb? I mean, this is you. I think you mentioned this on your Twitter account. This is something nobody appears to be talking about anymore.
Well, I mean, the difficulty is, and I know, and I have to tread carefully here, because once the case is live, there's a limit to what you can say, and so you don't want to be accused of screwing up an inquiry. I don't happen to think that's the right situation that we should be in, but unfortunately the law in this country says that that's what you have to do. So in the end, there's a limit to how much exploration we can do. What we do know is the police made a massive blunder, because when they went to discover Anne Whitcomb had died, they didn't notice that she'd been hit 21 times over the head with a hammer, and they thought she might have just fallen over while eating a sandwich. That I find incredibly difficult to believe.
I mean, this is a pattern, and by the way, this is not limited to the United Kingdom. So very often you have the police after certain incidents say, we don't know what happened, but we definitely know what did not happen, right? I mean, like Southport, for example, right? So we don't really know what happened, but we know it has nothing to do with terrorism and it has got nothing to do with migration.
Yes.
And it's the same thing we had in a couple of incidents in Germany, the same in Austria, which I always find very odd. I mean, if you say we have no idea what happened, okay. But to say we have no idea what happened, but before you jump to any conclusions, we have an absolute clear idea what did not happen.
Yes.
Because very often it turns out that the thing that they said did not happen ultimately was exactly what happened.
Yes. And I find it extraordinary that they would go to those extents and those lengths to make out as though something that they didn't want to happen didn't happen. And I think to myself, why are you making such a big deal about why it couldn't possibly have been somebody from the left who didn't actually like a person because of their politics? Why would you go to that extent to lie about what you thought didn't happen?
Yeah, and what we do know is in this case, right, that somebody traveled 370 miles to do what they did, and that does not strike me as a crime of passion, so to speak, or somebody who just wanted to steal a wallet.
Right.
But what's going on? You have to tell me, Mike. I mean, because I'm so befuddled. What's going on with David Lammy? I mean, these attempts to make sure that less information is provided to the public in cases of crime and similar incidents. What's going on with that?
Well, I mean, David Lammy, and I mean, I'm actually in the process of writing a book for Mike Fairclough, which is going to be out hopefully in the next couple of months, about the decision making that has happened in this country, where the powers that be are trying to make it difficult for journalists and ordinary members of the public to find out what is actually happening, so that they don't want to tell you, for example, the breakdown of crimes by nationality. And why? Because they know that if they do give you a breakdown of crimes by nationality, we will discover that the crimes are being committed by a huge margin by people coming into this country from overseas. And we know probably from which countries overseas, right? You know, we're not getting attacked by lots of people from Austria, for example, or from Poland. I mean, one of the things that people said about the England-Norway game, which was quite funny, was we await the riots that are going to happen on the streets of London when Norway lose a football match to Britain, because the Norwegians will all be out, you know, hitting each other and hitting us in the heads with axes. Well, of course, they didn't do that. But the Moroccans did, about a game against France, which took place in America. And the Moroccans were in London to demonstrate against what had happened 3,000 miles away in a country that they don't even live in anymore.
Oh, but this is the dilemma, right? I mean, this is the dilemma we face all over the West, that in fact, the truth would be so radicalizing. I think that the full, unhindered truth would make people so angry that more and more governments try to conceal the truth. And here's the thing, once you start doing that, the temptation to do this in other areas as well is, of course, increasing accordingly. So that's the slippery slope. And I know slippery slope arguments are themselves very often a slippery slope.
Yes.
But this is how a government becomes more and more authoritarian, because the truth itself is not just no longer a defense, it's actually an indictment. And you see this again all over the West, right? That so many things that we have been told are the case have not just turned out to be not the case, they have turned out to be the exact opposite. And I think this is the true dilemma, and we see this all over the West.
Yeah, absolutely. And also what we have seen, and I don't know whether you've heard me talking this week about this, but they've come up with a new phrase, right? We've heard about disinformation, which is information which is given out, which is probably incorrect. And usually it's people like you and I who are accused of spreading it, right? We've got misinformation, which the government sometimes puts out because they get it wrong and they, by mistake, tell you something that isn't true. There's a new word now, which is called malinformation. Yes. Malinformation is now apparently something which you and I will not be able to deal with. And so we shouldn't learn about it. We shouldn't be able to know about it, because if we hear it and we know that it's true, we will react badly. We might, get nervous. We might decide we want to have a riot, or we might decide that, we just don't like the fact that this is information that we believe shouldn't be the case. So malinformation is now the new kind of censorship.
Yeah, it's information that is true, but that can be used for malicious intent. I mean, this is so absurd, right? I mean, to basically say, okay, fine. So first, the right was wrong. Now it turns out that the right was right, but they shouldn't talk about it because
Right.
them being right just means that they're even more dangerous than they were before. So we have to ban them from speak even more.
I know. It's incredible, isn't it? So they keep coming up with more and more different complicated versions of how we can't tell you the truth. Basically, I can't tell you the truth, Ralph, because I don't think you can handle the truth. You know, it's like that scene from A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. And you go, okay, then. So please don't tell me the truth because it might upset me. And I won't be able to take my car to Sussex. I won't be able to take my dog out for a walk. I won't be able to see my children because I'll be so wound up by the truth that it's better if you don't tell me.
No, but it shows something, and this is, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far, but this argument has very often been made that the so-called woke mind virus, and also the whole concept of wokeness is basically that you replace facts with feelings.
Yes.
But this is exactly the point in case. So you have information that is objectively true, but you cannot share it. It would be malicious because it would make somebody feel bad. I mean, this is so absurd, and I don't mean this. I want to be very careful here because I mean absolutely no insult to your female viewers and female listeners. But this is then very often the argument that some people make, not necessarily saying that I make this argument, but that's a little bit a consequence of the feminization of politics. Again, I try to tread very lightly here, but where it's no longer evidence-based, it's feelings-based and based on what could the truth make some people feel, and that's then the basis for my policy. And that, that cannot go well for a long time.
Right. Well, to go back to the tragedy of Anne Widdecombe, we played last week a sort of tribute to her, and amongst all of the different interviews that we had done. And in one of those interviews, she said to us that she had about 10 years ago somebody break into her garden shed and steal a strimmer, one of those, electric devices that you use to trim the hedge and sort out the garden. And she said the police came. They didn't really dust for fingerprints. They didn't think that there was any chance of catching whoever it was that had stolen the strimmer. But they said that they thought it was somebody local who had also stolen from somebody next door. And she said, but the next thing they did was to ask me if I needed counselling. And she was like, what? And she just laughed in her face. And she said, I don't need counselling. I just like you to catch them so they don't steal anything else. And so they were offering counselling. They couldn't find the person responsible for stealing the strimmer, and they couldn't protect her from being murdered. But they could offer her counselling for the loss of a garden implement. I mean, I think that sums up the woke mind virus.
No, I would, and I think there's even, I think, a movement that preceded the whole wokeness issue, which is this very idea that there is no such thing as a criminal. There are only people who hadn't had enough therapy.
Right.
I'm of the belief, and I don't mean this in any way in a theological sense, but I'm of the belief that I think the number is rather small, but I think if they are left to roam free, they're very dangerous. But there is a number of genuinely evil people out there. So this idea that there are no evil people, there's just not enough therapy, I think is an extremely dangerous concept. There might be sociopaths, they might be psychopath, and I'm sure there are some reasons why they are who they are. But evil does exist. This, for me, has always been one of the worst attitudes of the modern world, to claim that there is no such thing as evil. Of course there is. And the British, by the way, knew this very well. If you look at British history in particular, I mean, one of the reasons why Great Britain or the United Kingdom became safe over history was because they had a tendency for a very long time that they hung about 1% of every male member of a generation for a couple of years. They basically eradicated the part of the population that was most likely and most prone to do evil things. That was part of the civil. We tend to forget this. People always make fun of me when I say on your show that I'm for bringing back the death penalty. But the death penalty was an absolute cornerstone in the establishment of what we would call civilized society. We tend to forget that.
Yes, indeed. I mean, there are those who would say it doesn't actually prevent people from killing people and doing terrible things, certainly in America. But I'm not sure.
That's not true.
I wonder whether America is actually a bad example, because America is a very different country particularly to Western European countries. And I think that, the fact that the death penalty doesn't appear to be a deterrent in America doesn't mean it wouldn't be one here.
But I don't think that's entirely. I mean, your argument that is true in the sense that it doesn't have a deterrent effect. But again, if you look at how it happened in Western civilization, the simple fact that pretty much you killed off all those who committed the most violent, worst crimes also meant that there was no new generation. And I know this sounds very, very terrible. You could say it was a form of eugenics via the judicial system. So I'm not embracing it, but I think we should also not ignore the consequences of that. And that's, to be quite honest, that's fairly well established in the scientific literature, right? That this did have an impact.
So what you're saying is that if you've got an evil individual, and you have to admit that some people are evil, that the likelihood is that if they have children, they will also be evil.
It's again, I make this argument very carefully, so I don't want anybody to go overboard with it. But if you look at the decline of crime rates, particularly of murder in Western civilizations, it strongly correlates with the application of the death penalty. And we then at some point reached this civilizational stage, which I'm very happy about, that we no longer needed it. So I completely agree with you, because the deterrent was no longer necessary, because the majority of people, I would say, are not prone to crime. Again, every study that we have shows that this argument, it's the same argument, by the way, with radical Islam. There's always the argument, you go on the internet and then you're radicalized on the internet. It's like catching a cold. You get up in the morning, you turn on your phone, you turn off your phone, and you have the desire to blow yourself up at an Ariana Grande concert in Manchester. That's not how it works.
No.
Right? This only applies to a very limited amount of people. Again, and I'm not saying we should kill, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying that civilization also, I forgot who said this, but it also depends on the ability of the government to be able to do violence on your behalf. Selectively, in rare cases, preponderance of evidence, absolutely. But the idea that there is no crime to be punished, there are only innocents that need therapy, I think is a very dangerous approach. And you see this also if you then, as somebody wrote it in your comments, I don't know if it's true, but if then all of a sudden the Southport killer, is moved to a psychiatric institution, I'm sorry, I don't think this is fair, that this is just.
Well, I mean, luckily Broadmoor is a secure unit. It's not just a psychiatric hospital, and so I don't think he's ever coming out. And I think probably he should have been put there in the first place, because that's where they put serial killers. But I'm with you. I think in cases like his, where he committed such a heinous, awful, ghastly crime, I would be more than happy to watch him being shot at point blank range by a firing squad. No problem at all. Thank you.
By default, right? I mean, by default, somebody who does that is not, quote unquote, a normal person.
No.
So this is an almost tautological argument, but I think that the judicial system also has the responsibility to whatever small amount it is possible to give some kind of a sense of justice and satisfaction to the relatives of those little girls that were killed. I think the idea to tell those parents to pretty much say, well, this was just really an a tragedy.
Yes.
No, somebody picked up a knife and killed little girls. That's not a tragedy, it's a crime. And crimes need to be punished. Because if you go down this road, sorry, my last point, I'm sorry, I'm too much on a roll today.
No, I love it. I think, Ralph, this is why we have you here, because we believe in your passion. Go ahead.
Because if you go down this road, you basically say there is no longer any possibility of guilt. Because if everybody who commits a heinous crime is actually a psychiatric case, then you immediately also say, between the lines, that person is not truly responsible for what they did. Therefore, they are not truly guilty. But I could hypothetically expand this to all kinds of crimes. I cheat on my taxes, I steal gum in the supermarket. I could then say that everything is basically just
but you know what? What's interesting?
Issue.
What's interesting, Ralph, and we must move on because I've got to rush off and talk to our man Bogle, but one of the things that I found interesting this week was that Andy Burnham has appointed as his kind of number 2 in command in Downing Street a woman called Louise Haigh, who's a convicted criminal convicted fraudster. She pretended she had her phone stolen. Now, what kind of message does that send to kids, to ordinary individuals, to people like me, you know, basically to say, well, it doesn't really matter. It's just a criminal conviction, you know, wasn't very serious. It was quite a few years ago, you know, and as somebody said to me, oh, we've all done it. Actually, no, I've never been arrested and charged with a crime. I've never been convicted of committing a crime because I'm not a criminal. She is, and now she's running the government.
I mean, if I would be facetious, I would say, well, I guess joining Andy Burnham's government is very similar to joining a mental institution. So at some point, these things might actually add up.
Yeah, I know, absolutely.
But I'm not facetious. I would never say such a thing.
No, of course you wouldn't say such a thing, and you wouldn't trivialise such matters. But great to see you. Ralph, as ever, thank you very much. Loving the globe and the map behind you, by the way. Superb.
Yeah, by the way, it's a real map. It's not a digital background. It's a genuine map.
It's a proper map. I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah, well done. You're 10 out of 10 for that. Ralph Schulhammer, reporting into us from Austria. What a guy. One day he's going to be here. See you soon in the studio, because we've got to do that. We have got to do that. And what a passionate man, and what a great argument he made there for the death penalty. And I know that, you know, it's a cheap shot sometimes to go and have a conversation about the death penalty. But that was not a cheap shot. I was not expecting him to say it, but I found myself in total agreement. Because quite often I find myself not in total agreement with those who would like to see the death penalty returning, because I think that it's an uncivilized country that operates that sort of punishment for people who should be put in prison for the rest of their lives. But you know what? Listening to Ralph there, I think to myself, maybe I'm the one that's got it wrong. Maybe it should be the death penalty that gets brought back. Let us know what you think. Hamish says that was brilliant. Yeah, I mean, we've had, again, like all week, thanks to Charlotte, the world's greatest booker of guests, we have had some amazing guests this week, and some of the greatest conversations. Yesterday in particular with Sonia, and then followed by Ben Habib. Just incredible. But right now, we're going to have another great conversation with a man who is associated most closely, I suppose, with the Brexit Party. Aman Bogle is here. Aman, very good morning to you, sir. Oh,
A bit quiet.
it sounds like you've muted yourself. Have you muted yourself? Could you have done that? We can't hear you.
I can hear him a little bit, but very quiet.
Is it very
Log
quiet?
Back on. Log back on.
Would you mind logging away and logging back on, because that would be good, because we need to hear what you're saying, and we can't right now. Aman Bogle there, who is a Reform Party aficionado. Sorry.
News?
Should we do news? Yeah, okay. Let's do some quick news with Edward Hughes. No, with Fiona MacLeod. Sorry.
Good morning. I'm Fiona MacLeod. Day 5 of the Andy Burnham Premiership, and the new Prime Minister is busy proving he's a man of the people, or at least a man of the pub. He's announced a 20% cut in business rates for pubs, clubs and live music venues from next April, saving the average boozer a heroic £1,100 a year. Pubs need to know the cavalry is coming, he declared, which is lovely until you realise it's about £3 a day and the very biggest venues don't even get it. Still, better than a kick in the optics. Meanwhile, the Knob of the North nipped up to Glasgow for the Commonwealth Games and promptly told Scotland's First Minister that a second independence referendum is firmly off limits. Devolution is fine, apparently, just not the bit where Scotland gets to decide its own future. Same old problems, slightly cheaper pints, and the nation once again waits to see how long this particular cavalry charge lasts. Remember to like and subscribe. See you later, alligator.
This video is sponsored by Tally Money. I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by CEO and founder Cameron Parry. Cameron, very good morning to you. Nice to see you. Tell us what Tally Money is.
Well, at Tally Money, you get a savings account powered by gold. So we give you a sort code and account number in your name, just like a normal bank account, but instead of sitting in pounds, you now have milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. And how does it actually work sort of day to day? Do you check the gold price every day? Do you need to do that? How does that?
We use the spot price, what's called the spot price in gold, and that updates every minute. It's a live price. We don't charge any premiums or FX margins on anything on that. You just go about your day as though it was any other mainstream foreign currency, except that you see all your transactions in real time and you're not getting charged international transaction fees and things like this.
Okay, so if I move some of my money into Tally, because I've just opened an account, what happens to it? And is it one of those things that I'll just be watching all day to go, ooh, look what's happening today?
You might do, but you've probably got better things to do with your time, to be honest, Mike. I don't actually think about the little movements in price, because I know over time that on average it goes up more than 12% per annum, and it has each year for the last 10 years. You know, bank savings products or current accounts just can't compete with that at all. But the main thing is my money's sitting there. It's my direct ownership of an asset. When I use my Italia card, you know, in London to buy a cup of coffee, the merchant still gets pounds.
Yeah, okay. To find out more about Tally Money and for a special offer for viewers of the Mike Graham Show, simply scan the QR code or click the link in the description right here. I think we've got Aman Bogle back, hopefully, where we can hear him. Aman, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Good to be on the show.
Yeah, there you go. That's much better. You've been down in Clacton this week campaigning for Nigel Farage. I thought since you've been doing that, and you've probably seen this already, but we thought we'd have another laugh about it. There's a woman who drove past Nigel yesterday as he was campaigning and forgot to look ahead of what was going on in front of the car.
Well, just send a couple of people over.
Yeah. She won't be doing that again in a hurry.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? How upset people get. She basically shouted out the window at him and then managed to crash into the car in front of her at the traffic lights. Brilliant.
Best of British.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. I mean, look, Nigel Farage in Clacton, right? He's the face of the working people of Clacton, and he's taking on the establishment. And that's the sense I got from speaking to people, both in Clacton and then further down the road within Clacton in Jaywick, right? Huge amounts of deprivation in Jaywick. It's a place, Jaywick, you know, of long-term structural neglect. You know, a once vibrant holiday area, really nice to begin with, and now on the permanent low-income, very bad housing, no infrastructure. And, you know, it tells a story of the country that we've got managed decline in place over the last 3 decades under the Uni Party. And let's be honest, Labour, the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, all the others, including Restore, they refuse to put up a candidate. And you know what? They are all backing this rather bizarre man who counts as Count Binface, right? It's basically they're saying that they don't really care much about the British public, and certainly not about the people of Clacton, right?
Yeah.
They've refused to put a candidate. And Kemi's running away, I think, very much like a chicken, unable to put up a candidate who would not lose their deposit in front of Nigel Farage.
Yeah, I mean, I refuse to give any credence to Binface at all. And in fact, I prefer to not use that name. I prefer to use his real name because he's an ex-BBC comedy writer. You know, if anything, he's more part of that sort of lanyard class BBC lefty establishment than anybody, you know. So actually, it's quite ironic in a way that he's the main sort of protagonist that's going to stand up against Nigel Farage, because he represents everything that I think most Reform voters detest about Britain.
Exactly, and he represents the Uni Party, I think, to a T. Couldn't care about the great British public, stuck in their own little bubble in North London and the NSW1, and completely out of touch with what ordinary people are crying out for. And this is what's, you know, they're crying out for about Andy Burnham's first week as Prime Minister, right? Pure Labour theatre, right? He walked into number 10. He waltzed into number 10 on a party coronation. And people in Clacton, well, they didn't have much good things to say about that. They say, look, we've got a 7th Prime Minister in a decade from the Uni Party that's been delivered. Where's the people say? Where's the people of Clacton say in any of that? Where's the mandate? And when they hear, in people in Clacton, when they hear that they've been given 80 pence off their electric bill every month, every week, and instead they're getting for that a shiny new number 10 North, right? Nice headlines, soft optics. You know what? But people of Clacton tell me that the boats keep coming, mass migration is not stopping, the Boris wave is not being returned,
right?
And what is Burnham's answer to any of that, right? More state control over housing, more state control. Where's the circuit breaker that he promised? I mean, look, people in Clacton, I think, are fair to believe that this is just Starmer continuity with a northern accent and a T-shirt, right? That's what this is. And speaking to people, certainly on the seafront in Clacton, out for a walk and for a lunch, they're fed up, and they say, look, we need proper change. We don't need more managed decline, and certainly not, a swing back to the bad days of the 70s under hard left socialists. And I think Nigel Farage is right. We should have a general election, and we need it now.
Yeah.
And can we always late to the show bad now? I think it's just too chicken to call for an election, and it really does make you wonder. What exactly is this so-called renewal that she keeps banging on about? Because if she was renewing the Conservative Party as Conservative, surely she'd be up for the challenge.
Well, you would think. I mean, I'm very much one of those who would like to see a general election because I think Burnham and Labour would get absolutely trounced by reform. Some people think reform have kind of, had a bit of a difficult last couple of months, and they've been assailed from all sides by stories in the press and poll ratings kind of coming down. But, I see this morning that the latest hit job from the Times has only made it onto page 14, which is a little left-hand page. It's not on the front anymore. I think people are getting a bit tired of reading about George Cottrell, a bit tired of reading about Richard Tice and his tax affairs, and a bit tired of reading about Nigel Farage's houses, And I think people have gone, wait, actually, we don't care. We're not interested in the smears and the and what it is that the mainstream media would like to portray Nigel Farage as, which is kind of trying to make out he's some kind of spiv. I mean, the real spivs are in Westminster, aren't they?
Exactly. And you know what? Nigel Farage has been at the forefront of British politics. He's been the most consequential politician in a generation, right? Getting Brexit on the table, getting a referendum on the table, and making it happen. And it wasn't for him, we would not be a free and sovereign independent nation again. People realize that. People know where they stand with Nigel Farage. They have trusted him for 30 years. And they also equally well know where they stand with the Uni Party. They've suffered the Uni Party for the last 30 years under the Blairite orthodoxy, right, of multiculturalism, of limitless spending and endless taxation. And what do we get for it? That's the question that people in Clacton ask. And I would argue that's the question that people across all of our coastal constituencies are asking. They have been the most neglected, right? They were promised levelling up by Boris, and that fizzled out. They've been promised by Burnham now with a number 10 in the north, right? What is that going to actually deliver? More optics.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Aman, got to run. Thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you. Aman Bogle there with his defence of Nigel Farage in the Clacton by-election, which is happening in August. Is it August the 13th? I think it is. So, just a couple of weeks away before we find out whether the people of Clacton don't give Nigel Farage a vote of confidence and somehow he loses to that complete moron Binface. I've met Binface. He's a total lefty and not funny. That's probably why he works for the BBC as a comedy writer, says Jay. Wouldn't be surprised if it was for Mrs. Brown's Boys. Yeah, the guy is a complete and utter bozo. I've got no interest in him. He's not funny. He's not in any way edgy. He likes to think he's edgy. He's the sort of bloke that should join Led by Donkeys. What a complete and utter wanker, quite frankly. Sorry to say that. Sorry at this time of the morning to say such a word, but it's 8:47. Time to talk to Lauren the Insider, who I had the pleasure of meeting last week at the CPAC scenario. She's going to tell us a story about a man that hasn't been much in the news, actually, called Mohammed Bashir. Lauren, very good morning to you.
Morning, how are you?
I'm all right. I'm still struggling to see what benefit we've got from having a new Prime Minister, and I can't even really think of the word Prime Minister conjoined with the two other words, Andy Burnham. It just doesn't seem right. It seems like bizarre to me.
He's just another bad actor, isn't he? He's a Fabian. I'm just so happy that I can tell my daughters, Mummy did God's work, because I told Andy Burnham what I thought of him before his security was upped, before he became Prime Minister. And he is a coward. This is the man that has obstructed justice for the grooming gang victims, if you speak to the whistleblowers. And so I went through his social media, Mike, before he was Prime Minister and screenshot everything. And I'm putting the video out later today because the Fabians have tried to erase the fact that he's good at drinking a pint, but he's good at nothing else.
Yeah. Well, you know, you've nominated something he's good at. I'm not even sure he's good at that. But I mean, I don't know what else what's the point of Andy Burnham? I don't know what he's for. I don't know what he stands for. He doesn't know what he stands for. Every single issue that he's ever stood on, he's flip-flopped on. He's decided that, you know, he's into Europe, he's not into Europe. You know, he's into regionalism, he's not into regionalism. You know, number 10 in the North, what a load of old cobblers.
I know, I don't want number 10 in the North. I don't want a Prime Minister in jeans. And he's all doing this whole, have you seen, it's all very digital friendly now.
Yeah.
So Andy Burnham loves to film a TikTok or a short or a reel. He is so disingenuous. He's a career politician that has been groomed to lie to us. This is all he's ever known. He's got to go.
Yeah, I would love it if, in the words of Kevin Keegan, Morrissey came out and just went, all right, you, stop using Smith's lyrics, stop using anything that we've ever said, because I'm a right-wing racist fascist and you can't use it. That's what I'd love to see. That's my wish for the next little week, you know?
I mean, that would be glorious. The problem is, though, Andy Burnham surrounds himself with really stupid celebrities like the Gallagher brothers and that plonker that sells the crisps that none of us care about. What's his name? Gary Lineker.
Yeah, you know, he was voted the least popular Gary in a poll that we did the other day, which included Gary Glitter.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant. He is, you know, these people are so deluded, and it will not be decades time until we are living properly under an Islamic state. We are looking at the end of Western civilization in the UK, and let's see what they all have to say then. We'll know we were on the right side of history.
We will. Well, I wonder how long it will be before Andy Burnham issues and actually enunciates the word immigration. He hasn't said it yet. He's been in since Monday. It's now Friday. He's never said the word immigration. We've now got super dinghies coming across the channel, carrying as many as 150, maybe 160 men per boat, right? I mean, the boat is literally the length of a double-decker bus. Have you got the video? Oh, yeah, let's have a look.
So here you have some of the craziest stuff I've ever seen. You have all the migrants here by the wall.
It's almost like Heathrow Airport now. What's that?
This photographer is amazing, by the way. I've interviewed him, and he told me that he's heard gunshots over there. Some of them are carrying weapons.
Right.
Women have been thrown off board mid-sea, and women and children are being used to kind of get these boats going. And these are the kind of people that are coming into our society. These people must go. Millions have got to go. But Mike, at the end of the day now, we are just being played. This could be stopped. This is all part of the plan to break up our civilization, our Christian country. And the Nowhere photographer has told me, he said, these people are not going to assimilate. They have no plans to assimilate. These are the kind of barbaric men that throw women off mid-sea and children.
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely shocking. Which brings me to, I mean, what I've got in front of me here, a story about a man sentenced to life in prison at Manchester Crown Court by the name of Mohammed Bashir. Tell us about that.
Well, this is a story that, thank goodness for Dan Wootton Outspoken, because if we hadn't had last night's episode, people would not know the truth about it. This man is now spending 17 years in prison, but we all know he won't. He'll get let out early. They always do. And this was a terror attack plan where so much was missed. The footage that convicted him actually came from inside the mosque.
Yeah,
but the police
this is the Manchester mosque attack, right?
So the Jewish attack, but the footage was in,
the synagogue attack. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, but the police had never checked his phone. That, you know, everything around this, it's very shady because we're told, oh, no one could know anything because of contempt of court. And Dan Wootton said no. Yet again, we are seeing contempt of court be used to silence the truth because this is evidently a problem. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and say there's bad happening in all mosques, but there is a problem going on, evidently, and we can't get into these mosques. Now, the man held a Pakistani passport, but was referred to as British. And the judge pulled him up on the point and she said, you're British born and raised. Where did this radicalization come in? This is not compatible. No shit, Sherlock. This is what we're all saying. So there's a bigger question as well. The fact that the judge is trying to be PC, and I know it's obviously a difficult situation to some degree for a judge, but the radicalization is happening, I think, whether they've got a British passport or not. If they're being brought up in homes that are anti-British, there we have the answer.
Well, exactly right. And again, we find ourselves having to kind of pick through the code where they don't actually say what they should be saying, which are, these are the facts, this is what this guy did, and this is when he did it, this is how he did it, and this is why he did it. Instead, we get this kind of, ludicrous code, like we're getting in the Anne Widdecombe case and in so many other situations when it involves, some kind of radical terrorism. We don't get told the truth. And I think people are wising up to that.
Yeah, we don't get told the truth, but also what we do see is Shabana Mahmood and all of the other puppets, they come out, don't they, when there's any possible angle to make Muslims or Islam the victim. So recently we saw that there was allegedly a big terrorist attack where countless lives were sold from the police interjecting at a big Islamic event. Well, it turns out it was a bloody drone being flown over. There's no retraction from Shabana. Those tweets have miraculously disappeared, but are only showing up on some people's timelines. We are being governed by Islamists and two-tier hypocrisy. The problem is, though, the government, and you'll know this, Mike, especially coming from mainstream, they have a lot of power when it comes to what mainstream can and can't report. So much of everyone's news is filtered out under the guise of national security. So this is why, as well, your show, Dan's show, it's so important because people are not getting the truth. And the torture that patriots are being put through, we see all this two-tier going into schools. Oh, we've got to stop the far right. What are the far? Is the far right just people that are genuinely scared that Islamists, a political ideology and, very extreme Muslims are taking over? You would have thought with this guy as well that has gone to prison, there should be an alarm bell when there are people called jihad.
Yeah. You would think. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Conor Tomlinson who said, if you've got a name like jihad, maybe it's a good idea not to let that person into the country. Like, what's your name? Patrick. Okay, you can come in. What's your name? Brian. Yeah. What's your name? Jihad. No, sorry, mate. I think you stay where you are. It's insane, isn't it? But it's like they don't want you to know, and they don't want you to think like that. They want you to go, oh no, it's fine. It's jihad. It's like, do you remember when the first Palestinian marches happened after October the 7th in 2023? And the police actually said, oh, jihad can mean lots of different things. They were all shouting for jihad. It was like, oh no, jihad can be just, be a good Muslim, be, somebody who is responsible for your family. No, it's not. They're talking about like holy war against the West. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, but the Home Office are probably like, right, your name's Jihad. Oh, you can have a house. You can come in. Yeah, definitely. We won't check anything else. I mean, Mike, I recently went to Mallorca with the kids and I got stopped going through security, probably because I'm seen as a far right mouthpiece or whatever.
Yeah.
Or a gobshite. But my 2-year-old daughter was frisked. She had it was quite, I found it very intrusive. My daughter was in floods of tears. She was petrified. Security people all dressed in black that were coming to do this, and I was furious. I thought, you are doing this for me to get out of the country. They're trying to humiliate me going through security, cause trauma to my 2-year-old daughter, and then, but anyone coming over in a boat called Jihad, oh, you're fine, go straight through. Do you want yoga lessons?
I know that
yoga lessons now.
People will criticise me, no doubt, for this, but I find it slightly ironic that as you are searched by these people, as you leave the country and as you come back into the country to show that your British passport is, a sign that you're British, they're all Asian, all of them. At Heathrow Airport, everyone And I know it's not a brown skin thing, but they're all Asian.
So when I came back through passport control, I could not find someone that speaks English. And for me, that could also be someone that's white that can't speak English. For me, it's never about skin color. It's there are people that evidently are getting these jobs that are not fluent in English. If I decided to move to another country, let's say I decided to move to Spain.
Yeah.
And I walked around speaking broken Spanish and got a job speaking broken Spanish. That would be obscene.
And you
that
tell Spanish people, I'm just going to search your bag to see if you're worthy to come back into your own country that I've literally moved to in order to set up my business. It's just wrong. I'm sorry. I think it's wrong.
But this is the problem, the whole definition of, what is it to be British now? It's like, anyone can be British now.
Yeah.
You can be British. All you have to do is be stood on, this soil and you can be British.
Yeah.
And the irony that actually the British that the government and the mainstream media and the politicians all celebrate are the people that are the most anti-British. I wanted to put a flag on my car recently and I bought one for my mum. She said, I don't feel safe doing it. I don't feel safe that I won't be attacked. I mean, what a world we're living in.
I know. Shocking. Anyway, listen, Lauren, great to see you and good to meet you the other day at CPAC. It was very nice.
Did you have fun?
I did. I ended up on a boat in the Thames. I got home about 3 a.m. and I didn't actually get stopped by Border Force. I didn't get stopped by Border Force as I got off at Westminster Pier, which I was happy about. So I'm not sure.
I was due to go on the boat, but Victoria Hervey was on it, and I think she's a dirty little rat that shames victims.
I saw that you were not keen on her at all. Like, you're not going to be happy about this because I think we're going to get her on the show next week. So, but I blame Charlotte for that.
Let me debate it.
All right. Listen, maybe we'll set it up.
Could you just ask her though? She talked about, being in the Epstein files as it was anyone that's anyone, and she slammed Virginia Giuffre. So on behalf of every victim and survivor, Mike, you need to confront her on that because making a career out of victim shaming is disgusting. And I'll just end by saying that Victoria Hervey is part of the kind of Epstein class that has money, power and influence. Someone like Virginia Giuffre was on the back foot, and that could be every single one of us.
Yeah. Okay, I will do that. Exactly what you ask.
I should be watching.
Could be very interesting show. Thank you very much indeed. Lauren the Insider, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
So much going on the show today. This week has been remarkable, actually. So much has been happening. And we've got a new Prime Minister, of course. And who better to consult on such important matters of state than Annunziata Rees-Mogg, who joins me now, I think. Annunziata, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, it's not easy, this job, You have to kind of keep making sure that everybody's happy, not getting upset about certain things, and still managing to keep a smiley face as we go through this horrific time that we've got with this bloody awful new Prime Minister.
I think it's definitely a time of if you don't laugh, you cry, so you might as well laugh. And that's why it was so entertaining this week with the whole parakeet
oh my
scenario.
God. Yes. I mean, you can bless Stella Creasy for making sure that whenever you think of politicians, there's always one who's worse than you thought.
It was so phenomenally stupid. I mean, there've been parakeets in London most of my life, and more recently, lots of parakeets that you see everywhere. And but I loved the British response of, here's a lost deer and actually it's a dog, or here's a soft toy up a tree.
It's a great. I mean, this is when you think that Twitter is a sort of ghastly, poisonous, terrible place to be. You actually look at it and go, it's actually quite funny.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's nothing quite like the British humour.
Yeah, and the problem, of course, for Stella Creasy is that she takes herself so seriously because she is so right on and Labourite and Walthamstow. I mean, I've been to Walthamstow. It's a bit like, when Andy Burnham talks about Manchester being, Nirvana. and the greatest place in the world. I mean, I've been to Manchester, and in fact, I'm going there next week. It is not Nirvana. It is certainly not the greatest city in the world. And quite frankly, you can't get around it because the traffic's so bleeding bad. So he hasn't done anything for it. It's a bit like her saying Walthamstow is this amazing... You know, I've also been to Walthamstow, and it's not an amazing place, I'm afraid. Sorry to say that.
Well, I'm not convinced that she goes out in Walthamstow, seeing she's never managed to notice the parakeets before.
I know. And also, how stupid do you have to be to not know the difference between a parakeet and a parrot?
They're quite different sizes as a starting point.
Right.
Yeah.
They make different noises. They have different beaks. They're literally different colours. You know.
Yep.
But there we are. And also, she had such low abilities in the humour department that she thought she'd just keep going on and on and on. And the great thing is that she's had finally to delete the original tweet, which is that she's now done.
She did, but I expect lots of people have saved it for posterity. But she did that one of those really sanctimonious, this is why politics is broken, because you're all so mean to me.
Right.
No, it's not. It was stupid. Take it on the chin.
Yeah, seriously. And just stop. Just stop. I mean, at one point, I stayed away from it for quite a long time, and eventually I just went, when she did that whole thing about, you know, this is why politics is broken, I just went, you know, Stella Creasy admits she's an idiot.
Exactly. I mean,
That's pretty much it, right? But let's talk about King Andy of Tit North, because I don't know if you've been to Tit North, where everything's a lot better in Tit North, because it's lovely and everybody's lovely and smiley and they haven't got much money, but they're lovely people. And, you know, that's all we do. We smile a lot and we like to take a bus every now and again to get wherever we're going. Unfortunately for Andy, most people who live in places like where you live, there are no bleeding buses. You know, where my kids live in Sussex, which is only 40 miles south of London, there's about 2 buses a day that go into the local town. And if you're lucky enough to get one of them, it takes about 4 hours to get there.
yeah. No. In theory, our village has 4 buses a day. Intriguingly, our nearest town is Skegness, and the buses don't go there. They go to the smaller towns in the opposite direction. So not useful to anyone. And
there's no
you
rhyme
couldn't
or
work,
reason to
you
it.
couldn't commute, you couldn't get to school. There is no daily thing you might need to do that you could possibly do on the buses. And saving £1 per journey is going to make very little difference to anyone near here. Our buses are empty because they don't go anywhere useful at any kind of useful time.
Right. But that's exactly right. So they're only kind of, you know, used by people who have got no particular place to go, and they're not in a hurry to get there, and they don't have a job, and they may well be unemployed. And that's basically who he's trying to serve, because in the end, that's all Labour can serve, because the only people that enjoy a Labour government right now these days are people who are either working in the public sector or who are not working at all.
Yeah. I think it's very clear that Labour is not working for working people. And if you just look at the announcement on the reduction of business rates for hospitality businesses yesterday, which is already having limitations put on it of what type of hospitality might count. Every single landlord is saying the problem is NICs, the employers' NICs that have put up the cost of employing people so much. The minimum wage that means the same, that the biggest cost often in a pub is the staffing costs.
Yeah.
And that's ignored, but that's because it's not about getting people to work and look after themselves and have personal agency and responsibility. It's about having people reliant on the state.
Yeah, exactly right. And he's not going to really be able to make any kind of inroads there, is he? Because supposedly, if he wants to do anything at all, he's going to have to not borrow more money, he's going to have to save money, and the only place to save money is welfare, but he's not going to be able to do it.
He hasn't mentioned touching it. It's completely unaffordable. When our benefits bill is bigger than our income tax receipts, as is now the case, you can't keep affording that. It's just not possible. And it's all very well, these, you know, charming millionaires who don't want to give more tax and actually fight the government when they're asked for more tax, saying rich people should pay more tax. but we're already soaked that this country's never successfully raised above 38% of national income via tax, and it's already above that. That gap is being filled by borrowing, and you can put up taxes all you like more, but you're going to just have to keep borrowing more to cover the difference.
How long do you think Andy Burnham's got before everybody's kind of sees through the charade, if you like, and will he have an election, do you think, early?
I think it's not at all unwise for him to choose to have an election early. The polls are mixed at the moment. I mean, yesterday there were the favourability ratings out. One had him at +13, which is pretty decent for a new Prime Minister. Not stellar, but pretty decent. Another had him at +3, which is very middling, and a big fall. I think it's down 8 from where he was a week before he was Prime Minister. And falling at that kind of rate is not looking ideal from the Labour Party's electoral perspective. We also had 2 polls out, I think it was on Tuesday or Wednesday, that showed either Labour have had a big bounce or they've had no bounce at all. So who knows? But if there is a bounce, he would be wise to take it quickly. He'd be wise to look at what happened to Gordon Brown, who did get a honeymoon bounce. It vanished within 6 months.
Yeah, I think so.
And he went on to lose.
Yeah, exactly right. I think, well, this is why I think you'll have an election early, because I think he won't want to go into 2029 knowing that he will be famous for losing the biggest majority that Labour ever had. Because that will be his legacy. You know how they love a legacy.
They adore a legacy, but he might also want to build that legacy as he sees it. I mean, at the moment, we've got sort of piffling bus fares and tiny little baubles that he's throwing out. But if he does want to build a legacy, that will obviously going to take time, and he might want to hang on to do that. But there is also always in our politicians, particularly our prime ministers, you can see it time and time again, the fear of an election.
Yes.
That you can't guarantee you're going to win, so you put it off thinking, if I just do this one more policy, then maybe I'll get it back. Maybe we'll have a lead again, because Labour has not had a lead in the polls.
No, absolutely right. Nunziata, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Have a lovely weekend. We will see you soon. Hopefully in person. You haven't been in here yet, have you? You haven't been down here. So you must come and visit us.
I would love to.
All right, let's do it.
Would love to.
Great to see you. I'll buy you lunch.
Take care.
Nunziata Rees-Mogg, thank you very much indeed. Joining us there for the probably the 3rd or 4th time, but we need to get her into the studio, I think. Plonk of the week maybe for Nunziata would be good. Now, we haven't got one for you this week, unfortunately, Plonk of the Week, because we couldn't manage to find the time to do it, because with UK Live online, we are literally working our socks off, producing shows. Kelvin McKenzie, I think, is back today, is he not? At 10 o'clock, I'll have to go popping in to see him before the end of the week. And, of course, Plank of the Week coming up in the next half an hour or so, which will go out tonight as well as an additional kind of thing. And also at the weekend, if you're a member of our Substack community, it'll be Ask Mike on Sunday. And also maybe a little bit of a walking and talking in the countryside, which I wasn't able to do last week. I had to do it in Victoria Station last week because I was on my way to a garden party. But there we are. I'm delighted to say that as we are now reaching 12 minutes past 9, it's time to say hello and a very happy Friday to Bishop Kai Dewar, the Bish. How are you, Kai?
Good morning, sir. I am truthfully absolutely exhausted, but rocking and rolling. And I have a very strange question that is going around my mind.
Go on.
Having just watched the live. I want to know how Annunciata knows that Andy Burnham has strange little baubles.
Well, that's a very good question. She's been around the political world for a long time, and maybe she's had some experience of either seeing them or feeling them. I can't say. That would be above my pay grade, obviously. But the next time we get her on, we'll ask her. Maybe what we should do is get you both in for Plonk of the Week, because that's the kind of question you could ask her once you've had a couple of glasses of bubbly of some description, right? So what have you been up to this week otherwise to be so exhausted? It's been a weird one, isn't it?
It has been. I mean, the start of the week was exhausting after having to listen to the King of the North droning on about his glorious rise to the supreme leader of Great Britain, as he thinks he is. So that was tiring Monday. Tuesday was just a busy day. Wednesday, I was in London all day filming and doing some other stuff. And then yesterday, London, and a stop in Cirencester on the way home. I think I got home at about, well, I got home at some ungodly hour this morning that man should only see once in a day, not twice. But I had to be here because Friday morning is incredibly important for me to be able to come and speak with you and to see everybody and share what I
and you know what? I know, because I've been quite remiss about this, because we had to sort of reshuffle things around because we're trying to do Plank of the Week in the last half hour on a Friday. And for the first time since we've reshuffled it, I've actually got a chance to talk to you, because normally I come to you and go, right, we've got no time, so just get on with your bleeding sermon, you know. Just get on. So we've actually got a bit of breathing space today, because I'm like you. The days kind of flood into to one another, and somebody mentioned this week to me when we were talking about Manchester and Manchesterism, and Andy Burnham claiming that it's such a sort of great place to be, that you had been to Piccadilly Gardens, and I don't know whether they were confusing that with you going out on the streets of Liverpool, but have you been to Piccadilly Gardens and done the things there?
Not recently. My last time in Manchester was several years ago. Burnham was mayor at the time, so not much has changed other than it's gone downhill, I suppose. But I do actually have Manchester on my radar, because having been out in the streets with the Guardians in Liverpool, I want to go see Manchester to see what's going on there, because the reports coming in are equally as harrowing as some of the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, as I'm sure you have on social media, clips of Manchester Piccadilly Gardens on a Friday, Saturday night, and I'm pretty sure I've walked through it, because one of my kids is up there. I'm going up to bring him back down after finishing his degree at Salford University, and whenever I've been there, it's not an easy place to get around, but not least because the public transport system doesn't work very well. The traffic's always really bad. The trams are kind of in disrepair half the time. And it's not, he's kind of rode in on this, great white steed as if he's the conquering hero of the North. And he's really not.
No, he's not. Manchester, to me, at the moment, is an absolutely atrocious place, a direct result as of many of the Labour-controlled areas. My brother was a student. My youngest brother was a student in Manchester. He was attacked one night just walking home. The attackers left him with epilepsy because two youngsters of Asian appearance, and I'm not speculating, it's what you could see on the CCTV footage from the police, just come out of nowhere behind him and smacked him in the head with a brick. Stole his wallet, stole his phone, and just left him on the floor. The police found him, and he was taken to hospital. So Manchester has fairly good memories for him as a student, but quite awful memories after his time there before moving back to Wales. And it's something we're seeing all across the country. Lauren was talking about it. People coming here with no intention of assimilation, and trying to turn these cities into their own regions. We see it in Birmingham, or certain areas of Birmingham. We've seen it in Manchester. We see it in Liverpool, Leeds, Bradford is particularly, Rotherham, you name it. And that's spreading further south. And on top of that, I have another massive concern, because I happen to be a taxpayer and a voter. I don't remember being asked if I wanted number 10 in the north and an extra tax burden. And I don't remember being asked by the Prime Minister if I think more devolution is a good idea. I was opposed to devolution in the first place. So here we have another Prime Minister come in with a relatively same attitude as Starmerov. I'm going to do what I want, whether I've got a mandate or not. And I find that, the United Kingdom is probably in the most unique moment in its political history, because never have we taken the worst prime minister in political history, gotten rid of him, and then replaced him with someone who is, far worse.
Yeah, far worse, with a smile. Because I've actually said this, that for all of Starmer's faults, kind of what you see is what you get. You know, he looks like an automaton, a robotic kind of, you know, hopeless, incapable man of communicating with ordinary people. You can't imagine him. Although as he sort of started to relax a bit in the later sort of days of his premiership, he appeared to be somebody that you could actually have a conversation with. But you know, the trouble with people like Burnham is that, you know, he's the guy he's pulling you a pint in the pub, and he's a lovely man, and as soon as you've walked the other way, he's stabbing you in the back and robbing you. You know, because that's the kind of charlatan that he is. So I'd, in a way, rather Stalin, as I like to call him, than Burnham, because at least with Stalin, you kind of know what he's like.
Yeah. Burnham is a real. I mean, I'm trying to work out what he stands for. He's flipped and flopped so many times in positions, and the roles that he's had in politics, and the people he's aligned himself with, and you know, he's got more flip flops than the Havaianas factory. So it's just, it really is. I think we're in for a real rocky road, and if he thinks that, you know, capping bus fares in England at £2 and knocking 35 quid off my VAT for my electricity bill for the next quarter is going to convince me that I should be voting for him to be the great redeemer of the United Kingdom. He's got a long, long way to go yet. But like every one of them, we still don't hear him mentioning that great immigration debate that needs to be resolved, which is, you know, one of the principal problems we have in the United Kingdom.
Well, it's like he doesn't know any words that begin with M. Or I, or even, you know, he doesn't. Migrants, no, don't mention those. I mean, we've got now these super boats coming across with 150 odd people on them. You know, it's not a small boat anymore. It's a bloody big boat, and there's an awful lot of people coming on it. You know.
Yeah, I know it's a sad state of affairs, because fixing that problem is really easy. You know, they keep blaming the ECHR, they keep blaming the Human Rights Act. There is nothing in the European Convention on Human Rights that prevents the United Kingdom from removing illegal migrants. I have been through it time after time after time. We have 4 immigration acts in the UK since the early 70s. All 4 categorize illegal immigration as the perpetuator needs to be immediately detained and deported, and we've had consecutive governments since Blair that have openly ignored the law of the land.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's no getting around it. We have successive governments that are complicit in the state the country is in and the number of people pouring in. And I say this both as a Christian minister and as a Christian myself. I have a concern about migration, not just because of the number of people coming in, but because of the kind of lengths that ordinary people trying to get a better life, not the, you know, the fighting age males that predominantly are putting their lives at extraordinary risks. Lauren was talking about it when you were interviewing, you know, women and children being thrown overboard halfway across the English Channel because they're no longer needed, or they're classed as, you know, second-class citizens. We're not doing enough to protect the innocent in this, but also to deal with the actual problem. And then on top of that, we have almost the same amount of people entering the country legally and never leaving when their visa expires or when their time in the UK is up. We have to change the whole system. And Scripture is very, very clear. It is not wrong of a nation to protect and defend its borders.
Yeah, absolutely right. Bish, listen, it's been great to be able to talk to you for some length of time, because we always like to hear your thoughts on all manner of things. But let's get to the meat of the matter. Let's get to the sermon for the week, because there's been a lot to discuss, a lot to think about. Let's hear what you've got to say.
Thank you, Mike. Well, today I thought we could all deal with a little dose of medicine that helps us to be strong and to be courageous. You know, the Scripture says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." We find that in the book of Joshua in the 1st chapter. And then St. Paul writes these incredible words to the church, to the Philippian church. "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." This morning, my brothers and sisters, I recognize there are moments in every life when the road ahead seems impossibly steep. A diagnosis might arrive, a business might fail, a marriage is under strain, or the nation appears to be losing its bearings. And the future that once looked so bright suddenly becomes very dark, very clouded, and very uncertain. And in those moments, for most of us, fear comes knocking. And fear is one of the oldest weapons of the enemy of our faith. It whispers things like, "You're not enough. You're going to fail. You'll never recover. The battle you're going through is too great." But throughout Scripture, God speaks a very different language. Again and again, he says to us, "Do not fear." Now, that's not because danger doesn't exist, and it's not because suffering isn't real. He says it because his presence is greater than both of these. Joshua understood this. Moses, the greatest leader Israel had ever known, was dead, and now an entirely new generation stood looking across the River Jordan towards the Promised Land. Before them stood fortified cities, experienced armies, unknown dangers, and everything about the situation should have terrified Joshua. Yet, God doesn't begin by explaining every obstacle. He doesn't hand Joshua a detailed battle plan. Instead, he gives him something infinitely greater. "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Notice where that courage comes from. Not from self-confidence, not from positive thinking, not from pretending everything will somehow magically and mysteriously work out. Biblical courage is confidence in the presence of God. Joshua wasn't fearless because he was strong. Joshua became strong because God was with him. My brothers, my sisters, that changes everything. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is deciding that God's promises are more believable than your fears. The Apostle Paul understood this too. He writes those famous words that we've just read. "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Those words are often quoted by athletes before a race or students before an exam. But Paul wasn't sitting in comfort when he wrote them to us. He was sat in a prison. He had known hunger. He had known rejection. The Apostle Paul had been beaten. He had been shipwrecked. He had faced unbelievable betrayal. And yet somehow he could still declare that Christ was enough. Paul isn't saying Christians can achieve every ambition. Far from it. He's saying that whatever Christ calls us to face, Christ will supply the strength to endure. Now notice the difference. The strength does not come from within us. It comes from him. That is the great lie of modern culture. Our world constantly tells us to believe in yourself. Yet the Gospels tell us something far better, for they teach us to believe in Christ. Because, my brothers, my sisters, there will be days when believing in yourself simply isn't enough. Your strength will fail. Your emotions will collapse. Your confidence will disappear. But Jesus Christ remains exactly the same yesterday, today, and forever. He never grows weary. He never loses control. He never abandons his people. And that means no circumstance that you will ever face has the final word. So perhaps today you're listening whilst carrying a burden nobody else knows about. Perhaps you're going through tremendous grief. Perhaps you're frightened. Perhaps you're wondering whether you'll make it through this weekend or make it through another week. My brothers, my sisters, hear the voice of God to you today. Be strong and courageous. Not because life is easy, but because God is faithful. Not because tomorrow is guaranteed, but because God's mercy is new every morning. Not because you can see the whole path laid out before you, but because God walks every single step of it with you. When David stood before Goliath, God was there. When Daniel entered the lion's den, God was there. When the 3 Hebrew children entered the fiery furnace, God was already waiting inside. When Christ walked out of the empty tomb, he proved once and for all that even death itself cannot overcome the purposes of Almighty God. That same Christ, risen, now walks beside his people today. So, my brothers, my sisters, whatever this day brings, walk into it with courage. Walk into it with hope. Walk into it with faith, because the God who called Joshua still commands courage. The Christ who strengthened St. Paul still strengthens his church. And the Holy Spirit who raised Christ Jesus from the dead still dwells within every believer. So today, my brothers, my sisters, lift up your head, stand a little taller, pray a little bolder, love a little deeper, hope a little stronger. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And because Christ is with you, you can face tomorrow. God bless you.
God bless you too, and brilliant as ever, Kai.
Why don't
Bishop
you relax?
Kai Dewar. Thank you so much. We'll see you next Friday. Have a great weekend. Got any plans?
I'm up in London on Sunday.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm heading to Talk TV in the morning, and then the Dan Wootton Show in the afternoon.
Fantastic stuff. Give them both my regards. I won't be here, unfortunately. I'll be down in Sussex and see my dog, who I missed last weekend because I didn't get down there. But
have a wonderful week and enjoy the weather.
I will. Thank you very much indeed. Bishop Kai Dewar, what a guy. Superb. Thank you, as ever. What a fantastic sermon and what a fantastic lesson for all of us there. We've got Plank of the Week to come with Mark Littlewood and Paul Cox, I believe. Super Chats to come as well. Let's have a look at some of those, shall we? What do you think? One from Seaside Babe. I had to take an English test to get into Canada. Not a French one then. Obviously you won't go to Montreal. Vive le Quebec libre. Simon Kilford, thank you very much indeed, as ever. One from Judas Goat. Here in the US, some states now have an option to seek the death penalty for child sexual abusers. I'm in Texas and support the death penalty only for the most egregious of crimes. Great show, Mike. Yeah, I remember when George Bush Sr., I think it was, came into to power in the White House. I think, was it him or was it his son, George W. Bush? I can't remember. But one of them just went through a massive execution program and had about 320 people on death row executed, more or less in a month before he took over in the White House. So just to put a little marker out there. The Shepherd says this: our government is a prime example of AI. All the cabinet's intelligence is artificial. I see what you did there. Yeah, I know. But the trouble is what they're not good at is learning on the job. Because they don't get better as they do the job, they get worse, don't they? Should we have news or should we just go straight to Plank of the Week?
Straight into it.
Straight
Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with your host and show creator, Mike Graham.
And so, here we are. Welcome to Mr. Mark Littlewood, wearing another lovely shirt, and Paul Cox as well. We've decided basically that you guys are the best panel we can get together, so Fred, we're going to just keep using you and abusing you for the rest of the time, because you seem to work very well together. I was planning to just basically make, for the first time ever, all 10 nominees only from either the outgoing or incoming governmental ministers' portfolio. But then Gary Lineker came out of the blue and decided that he wanted to pay more tax, or at least make everybody else pay more tax. And then Stella Creasy kind of wandered out of the jungle of Walthamstow Park and discovered that she was in complete and utter plank. So it's still mostly for me all of the different names and categories of minister, outgoing and incoming. For example, you'd have to get David Lammy for outgoing, and you'd have to get Louise Haigh for incoming. And there's many others as well. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you, Mark Littlewood, kick off with the one and only Stella Creasy, because I suppose what we should do is, first of all, play the original Sin, right? The first actual video that she put out, which has now been deleted, by the way, of her discovering a parakeet in a park.
Walthamstow, up there is a parrot. If you have lost a parrot, not a parakeet, there is a parrot on the loose in Lloyd Park. It's right now, it's about 4:30, and we're in the kind of island section of Lloyd Park. I'll try and post some pictures up of it. But if you've lost an actual parrot, because it's too big to be a parakeet, it's in Lloyd Park right now.
First bit of breaking news is it's not too big to be a parakeet. It is a parakeet.
Mike, it's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean,
no, it's not, Mark. It's totally believable.
My theory is that she's auditioning to be the next David Attenborough, but unfortunately has fallen flat on her face at the first effort to actually identify an incredibly common bird in London. But it wasn't just that she couldn't identify the bird. I purport to have no particular expertise on wildlife myself. But the supreme confidence with which she was absolutely certain that this bird was some escaped pet from one of her constituents was absolutely unbelievable. And then actually her response to it, when people piled in and said, "Are you completely mental, love?" And it was brilliant on Twitter. There were all sorts of pictures being put up in London of people posting a picture of a fox and saying, "Has anybody lost their dog?"
Right.
Somebody posted.
There was a badger for the same reason.
In London Zoo saying, "Has anybody mislaid their cat?"
Right.
It was absolutely epic response, but she didn't take it on the chin at all. She said, "Oh, I just can't believe anybody thinks that this is news." Okay, it probably was a parakeet. She's still leaving the door open, apparently, to the possibility that somebody has actually lost their domestic parrot. And isn't it terrible that there's such a pile on when MPs, make a mistake about the natural world in which we live? Well, I mean, after all, how long has she been an MP for? 10 years or more?
Too long.
She still doesn't seem to realise that if a member of parliament makes a complete and utter tit of themselves, then there's bound to be a complete pile on social media. And she didn't take it with any wit or grace whatsoever. It was all, "Oh, this is outrageous. No wonder people don't want to enter politics anymore." I don't think she quite mentioned misogyny, but nearly. This is a very, very panky piece of behaviour, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to mimic the old dead parrot sketch, which I'm sure somebody will, this is an absolutely brilliant opportunity for it. It is no more. She is no more. She has ceased to be, and all of that. Let's have a look at what she then said, as you described, when she was called out on it. This is Stella Creasy's definition of being a victim.
I'm making this video to respond to the journalists who've been in touch with me today, not because we've got a new Prime Minister with a new policy agenda to want to know what my thoughts are or what it might mean for my local community. No, they want to cover the fact that I, as a local MP, thought I was helping to reunite a lost pet with its owner yesterday by making a video about a bird I saw in my local park. So yesterday I was with my kids in my local park in Lloyd Park in Walthamstow, and there was a green bird that seemed very tame because it allowed us to get very close to it. And it was quite big. Now, yes, I know what parakeets are. We've had parakeets flying around Walthamstow for donkey's years, especially on the Walthamstow marshes. Frankly, I always thought they were a smaller bird and a social bird, so you would always see them in pairs. So seeing a bird that seemed a bit bigger on its own, that seemed quite tame, I thought it might be somebody's parrot. And I thought, I'll do a quick video, see if I can help reunite it with its owner. Nothing more serious than that.
Yeah.
Now, it turns out...
Now, slightly worrying thing about that is she's now bringing donkeys into it as well. Now, I don't know about you. I don't want to start into spot donkeys. Paul, I mean, I don't want to row you out of the conversation here, but it is incredible, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, by the way, the reason she got so much stick is because much like nearly everybody on the left, the pretext was she was 100% right.
Yes.
If you go back to the original, I mean, we shouldn't go back to it, but back in the original video, she says, "Because I know all about birds in London," and I know a thing or two about birds in London, but I wouldn't talk about it on the internet, obviously.
Indeed. Me too.
I know with 100% certainty that this is not a parakeet, and therefore left herself wide open. She didn't come back and say, "Oh, what a wally," She doubled down. Oh my goodness. I'm surprised she didn't. I'm surprised she didn't say, "I've been in touch with the police. This has been a hate crime, and we're going to stamp this out."
Yes, I mean that would have been the next thing if she hadn't probably been had the piss taken out of her to such an extent. But I'm going to finish up and move on to the next thing with Intel Lady, always brilliant. This is her parody of Stella Creasy.
I'm here in Lloyd Park in Walthamstow, and up there, if you can see it, is a cat. I know it looks a bit like a giant pink toy axolotl, but it is actually a cat, and I really want to reunite it with its owner. So if you are in the Lloyd Park area of Walthamstow and you have lost your giant pink cat, can you come get it, please? I really want to be the one that reunites you. Also, while we're here, I have spotted a really oversized, you can see this really oversized bumblebee, which to me is a direct result of climate change. So, you know, if you didn't believe it, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. But first of all, first things first, let's reunite this cat with its owner. Thanks, guys.
Because I mean, that's the other thing. As Paul said, she was not only was she absolutely right, but she was also doing the right thing by doing a good thing by making sure that somebody could get their animal back.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, Mike, when she was complaining in her video that people were phoning her up because she made such a total arse of herself and by posting this video, not to ask her about what her great thoughts were on the new incoming Prime Minister. If I was a journalist, I think I would have just sent her a picture of Andy Burnham and asked if she could identify who the man in the picture was. And she probably would have come back and said, I'm pretty sure that's Jeremy Corbyn. That should have been the sort of question. So, I mean, it will take a very, very long time for her to live this down. Absolutely extraordinary.
So. Yeah.
And I think when you make a mistake like that, you basically got to just take it on the chin, right? She should have tried to make a joke of it rather than coming across all serious, that she was extremely annoyed that lobby journalists had not asked her to pronounce on the new philosophy and ideology of the incoming administration. How goddamn pompous. This is very, very planky behaviour, even by the rich and high standards of a Labour MP, Mike.
It is, absolutely right. We've spent quite a bit of time on that, so we're going to have to rush through the rest of it. Paul, you've got Lucy Powell as your favourite. I mean, it's hard to pick one, isn't it, a Labour kind of candidate for this week? Because, like I said, I was thinking of just doing all of them as Labour, either outgoing or incoming members of Parliament.
Yeah, can you imagine? I thought this could have been an omnibus 4-hour episode where we just sit here and destroy the characters of every single Labour MP. But I'm going to go with Lucy Powell, the new Education Secretary, by the way. And I don't know how we end up with Education Secretary that are sort of sub-intelligence, but we do end up with them. She comes from a family of teachers. Now, I have to confess, I always have a slight issue with teachers. Teachers never leave school. Teachers never leave school. That's my problem, Mike. They go to school, they then go to college and university and back to school, and then they tell everyone else how to be an adult human without any experience of being one outside of the educational system. And our family is full of
teachers. And they always look like that as well. They always look like her with that kind of...
This is because she talks about, before we get on to her grammar and spelling, because she talks about a number of things. She had a tweet that was marked by the Tory party, which I thought was hilarious. 3 out of 10 see me after class. And you know, she then did the Stella Creasy thing of saying, "Oh, this is outrageous. You know, why would you pick on my spelling and grammar?" And we're like, "Well, you're the education minister, you wally. That's why we don't ask for a lot in this country at the moment, but if we could have an education minister who could spell and use grammar correctly, that would be much appreciated." But she talks about identikit children in a previous interview that she'd done, where she's saying that schools just produce identikit children, which they've done for hundreds of years, by the way. But she talks about it in terms of spelling tests being bad and mandatory GCSE subjects like English and maths, which obviously she doesn't agree with. And the trouble with this whole point is she is an identikit MP. She looks exactly like the previous flipping... She looks like Bridget Phillipson for a start. So she looks like the previous education secretary. They've all got the same idea where they're so smug and self-assured. I just can't believe we found ourselves in this position, in this country once again, where we've had a complete reset and ended up with exactly the same people with a slightly different smile.
Yeah, exactly right. I've got another Intel lady clip. I'm sorry to bombard you with Intel lady, but Intel lady doing Lucy Powell, I think is brilliant. Have a look.
Oh, hi. As Deputy Leader of us Labours, I wanted to be the first person to congratulate Andy Burnham on his incredible win in the Makerfield by-election. We are so happy. It really was quite a landslide for us Labours. It really was. It really was. Very popular in Makerfield. It really is. Really is. I found that out when I was canvassing with him. They really love us Labours in Makerfield, so we were very happy for him. We really are.
Sorry. Now this next clip I'm going to show you is not anybody doing an impression of Louise Haigh. This is actually Louise Haigh, and I'm not even nominating her for the way that she walks. You know that Bee Gees song? You can tell by the way I use my walk. I'm a woman's man. I'm a woman's man. Have a look at this.
With us, we've got another arrival here in Downing Street, and it is Louise Haigh, a key member, in many ways, Beth, of the...
What is that all about? What is going on there with her arms? You know, she's walking...
That is an adult human realising that she's being watched while she walks and trying to say to herself, how do I do this again? What do the arms do? What do the legs do? And this is what's manifested, this ridiculous, like robotic, like she does not know how to use her legs.
I mean, some unkind people have suggested it's the walk that you use when you don't want to answer your phone while walking down the street because you've reported it stolen already. And if you answered it, that might incriminate you. I don't know about you, Mark, but have you ever reported a stolen phone on the actual phone that was supposed to be stolen?
No. I've always avoided that trick. Like, if I want to cover my tracks, I always borrow a mate's phone in order to phone 999 and report it missing. It's pretty extraordinary, isn't it? That, I mean, she's back in government. You know, I mean, I do believe in second chances, but, you know, she was a convicted fraudster from 20 years ago. She was initially going to be in charge of the anti-fraud department in government.
She was,
right? Well, you might say that she had some experience of that, I guess. But anyway, she's back in. Then you've got Angela Rayner back in for the housing secretary, you know, who didn't know what the appropriate tax was on actually purchasing a house. You've got Jonathan Reynolds back in government, who... apparently
fake solicitor, as I like to call him,
but was utterly delusional about it. What's weird about this, Mike, is that when you do something wrong in politics, it's not career ending. It's a bit like football. You know, you serve a 5-match ban or something, right? And then you're back in power as soon as a particular time has passed. And Louise Haigh is obviously in that category. Now,
and Angela Rayner, of course, sort of compounding her unlikableness by saying yesterday when she was interviewed by Matt Chorley on Radio 5 Live, she's not going to give back the 17,000 quid she got for being sacked as housing minister now that she's been rehired as housing minister. And in fact, she's going to wait until she gets sacked again, and then she'll be able to, it's a double or quits. It'll be like 34,000 she gets for being sacked twice as housing minister. And who knows, maybe she can get the triple and get in 3 times. It's just incredible, isn't it? And I mean, I've got, Paul, I've got any number of other people that you could name. Rachel Reeves, Wes Streeting. I've got Wes Streeting because he's the least likely person you'd put in charge of defence. I mean, I don't understand who came up with that idea. Ed Miliband, who put out a tweet yesterday from the Philippines about how he'd met Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio put out several tweets about all the people he met at this sort of Pan-Pacific conference that they're all at, except he didn't put out the tweet that he met Ed Miliband, which was really quite funny. Have you got that clip?
Oh my God!
Well, hang on. Let's have a look at this. This is another clip. This is the US ambassador being very ambassadorial about Ed Miliband.
Obviously, as you said, you disagreed with him on energy policy. I imagine you disagree with him on his views towards your boss, President Trump. He said the idea is that we have shared values with a racist, misogynistic, self-confessed groper beggars belief.
Yeah, I've read those. Those were some time ago, I think, and hopefully his views have changed. I think
those were 2016. 2 years later, he said Donald Trump has lowered the bar for idiocy. He said Donald Trump has a peculiar relationship with Russia. Can he really be our top diplomat dealing with America?
Like I said, I think people's view of President Trump in 2016 is probably a lot different than it is in now 2025. And going forward. So, or 26 even. I'm sorry, wrong year. And we're, I would suspect his views have changed on President Trump, but I haven't.
Warren Stevens there, a diplomat's diplomat, brilliant man. Unfortunately, doesn't know what year it is, but apart from that,
go on, Mark. Go on.
He just had an impossible job, right? So you get read something like, this bloke is a psychopathic groper. You say, well, yeah, but he did say that quite some time ago.
Yeah. Didn't mean it. No.
Yeah, it was just banter. So yeah, I don't envy him. I don't envy him that job whatsoever. But yeah, look, I think it's going to be pretty frosty relations between the UK and the Trump administration, don't we think? I think it's going to be a bit icier than it was under Starmer even.
Well, I'm hoping that Andy Burnham goes to the White House with a black T-shirt on and gets the Zelensky treatment in the Oval Office. That's what I'm hoping for.
Joyous.
Smarten up, you toe rag. Look, I mean, he says, I'm sure he's changed. I'm sure he's changed his mind since then. I'm sure he hasn't actually. Absolutely not.
No.
And do you know what? I'd have a lot more admiration for these people if they said, "No, I've not changed my mind. I think he is all these things," but they won't. They won't because they meant it, and they're going to be people pleasing Donald Trump because now they're in this new job. I mean, the guy who used to be chief net zero zealot is now flying all around the world to tell people what he thinks of Donald Trump or whatever. Yeah. The irony is off the scale. We're not serious as a country anymore. I mean, Ed Miliband has literally been given this role to get him out of London, I think, not because anybody thinks he's a serious candidate for foreign secretary. And we know we don't take foreign secretary seriously because we've had David Lammy in there before. I mean, we just have an array of absolute dullards that don't have any, I don't know, they don't have any backbone. They're not British. I don't understand anything about these people.
Yeah. Also, I think the other reason is that Andy Burnham doesn't actually have a passport because he doesn't go anywhere other than north. North, and if you can't go there by bus, I'm not going. Not going. And I'm waiting for the northern episode of the passport office to open up so I can get a Northern England passport, not a British one. That's what I think. So I think he's actually deliberately just sending Miliband out there, to make enemies. Argentina, Mark, and that has to be. And I've got to run this by you. And I know we haven't got loads of time, but. The Southampton spying scandal made its way to the front page of the Times this week because the manager of Southampton has now been charged, I think, with some form of jiggery-pokery, hiding behind a tree.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine the paucity of intelligence at Southampton Football Club that they need to spy on some very, very lowly teams to try and beat them.
Yeah, I didn't give Mike these words, by the way, Mark. This is Mike's words, all on his own. I have not.
Cox is loving every single.
Mike Graham is not influenced by me at all.
Yeah,
but do answer the question.
I'm
Mark.
not a Portsmouth fan, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I mean, my God, if you want to see how a punishment beating can be dished out in football, look no further than the case of Southampton Football Club. Crying out loud, we beat Middlesbrough on the pitch and then are ejected from the most expensive game in team sport. It now looks possible that the manager will be suspended from the game for 6 months. And all of this is because we sent an intern to stand by a tree with a pair of binoculars. If only FIFA had dished out punishments like this to cheating teams in the World Cup, England
like Argentina.
Would have won it, mate. Right?
Nicely done.
The other 47
would
have been expelled. So yeah, I feel a little bit hard done by. But proper football's back this weekend. Epic game at 7 p.m. on Saturday. Southampton are away to the mighty Eintracht Braunschweig. I can barely wait to watch that on the Southampton.
Is that in the Club Europa, Mediterranean, whatever it's called?
Yeah. Very obscure competition. Trust me.
What's the name again, Mark? Eintracht
Braunschweig. Yeah.
Braunstein.
You haven't heard of them, Paul. You
I was listening.
A football show. I took you on under false pretenses.
Like Hearts and
Surely you know
Hibs.
their record over recent
I just
seasons.
wanted to say Brownstein, Mark, okay? I've got to squeeze a joke in somewhere.
I'm going to start supporting them, I think. I mean, I've never had an interest in Brownstein Football Club before, but I think it just sounds like it's worth supporting. Because I've seen Hearts and Hibs have been playing some obscure teams this week in the Challenge Cup Europa, front seat in the cinema scenario, whatever it is. Yes, anyway. Mark, over to you, Paul.
Yeah,
We've
Argentina.
You haven't finished Argentina. Yeah, go on.
No, you were encouraging me to nominate Southampton, weren't you, Mike?
Sorry, I was trying to draw the two together.
So look, Argentina lost the disgraceful team in the World Cup. Lost to Spain with absolutely no dignity at all, even though it was essentially a 1-0 thrashing. When Spain were awarded the trophy, all but one of the Argentinian players turned their backs on the Spanish and just, who were awarded the trophy on the halfway line, and just looked at their fans behind the goal. That was pretty difficult. Although an excuse has been made for that. Some people have said that the Argentina players were just staring at the Spanish goal because they'd got nowhere near it during the 120 minutes of the actual World Cup final. They wanted to know what it looked like. But here's even weirder, Mike, right? Since losing the World Cup final deservedly and disgracefully, the Argentinian sort of football fans have started a petition saying they want it to be replayed because the FIFA officials were against them. I mean, I have no idea what parallel universe these people are living with. They were given every assistance at every turn in the World Cup, got them all the way to the final, finally beaten by a team who are enormously superior to them. But no, the Argentinians want it replayed according to 80,000 people have signed this petition by Change.org, although more people have actually signed a petition saying Argentina should be kicked out of the next World Cup. So Argentina as a whole, the players, the country, the fans, the public, even more entitled than a Labour backbencher, Mike. Very clanky behaviour.
Absolutely. And I see that there's a move, I think, by some to ban any Argentinian player who held that banner up for the Malvinas for coming back to play in the Premier League. I'm not sure.
I think that's a really good plan. I mean, the other thing, I'm genuinely and quite seriously looking into this. If your work status can be revoked because the Home Secretary determines you are not conducive to the public good, then why would that not apply to Argentinian players who are saying that the Falklands belong to Argentina? Seems to me that you should get your work visa revoked for that sort of behaviour. So if Shabana Mahmood wants to show that she really has got the cojones, that she is a tough Home Secretary, can you imagine a more popular move by the Home Secretary and the new government?
Can I just say that we do not want
Argentinians?
We do not want female Labour ministers proving they've got the cojones, because I've got a feeling that some of them might do.
That's not a great department to move into, is it? Sticking with football, Paul, Gary Lineker coming up on the rails as just when you thought that he'd given up being a wanker, he's re-entered the race.
He is the perennial Champions League wanker, isn't he, really? Gary Lineker, who wants to bring in a wealth tax alongside Gary, the economist. What's his name, Mark? Oh, my God.
The guy from Patriotic Millionaires, yeah.
Oh, Stevenson,
Gary Stevens.
Yeah. Or, as I like to call him, Gary the charlatan.
Yeah, he's not an economist.
No, he's not an economist.
No, I just
not even sure he's human.
Mark and I have never had a discussion about Gary the economist, but I could tell that there's no way on God's earth that Mark believes in his economic prowess.
No.
But look, Gary Lineker wants to introduce a wealth tax, and him and Gary and other millionaires have put themselves forward and said, please tax us more. They're not saying that. What they're saying is, we envy the billionaires and we want you to tax them more.
Yes.
And they don't take into account anything about these billionaires in terms of their wealth creation, the fact that they don't own, like, for instance, Elon Musk. He hasn't got $2 trillion in the bank. He's probably got, it's a lot of money, but he's probably got no more than about $1 billion in cash hanging around, and the rest is assets, shares, and investments in his own business. It's not immediately available to them. And at the same time, they are generating hundreds of millions, if not billions of pounds in taxes across the world because of the job creation.
Yeah.
They can't look beyond that. Whereas people like Gary Lineker and Gary the Wanker, that they are creating no wealth whatsoever.
No.
Sorry, I've forgotten.
No, it's fine.
We might have used up
Also,
our-
the slight hole in Gary Lineker's argument is that a few years ago he was taken to court by HMRC to pay about a £4 million backdated cheque for some money that he'd forgotten to pay in tax. And he fought them all the way and won the case. And he had the opportunity. He could have just given them the £4 million, but instead he spent about probably 100,000 quid paying lawyers to make sure he didn't have to pay up.
He avoided
right,
a shed
Mike.
load of tax when he went to Barcelona as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark could probably tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary, Mike. So Gary Lineker comes out and says, I really think that the government should try and get people like me to pay more tax, to which the response is, Gary, we tried that a few years ago and you've got and sued us. I mean, what more do you want? We sent you the bill and you refused to pay and lawyered up. I mean, there's only so much effort we can put into this, Gary. And you
Yeah, I mean, the good news is we did a poll this week on who's your favourite Gary, and Gary Glitter actually came higher than Gary Lineker, despite his various in flagrante scenarios. We're pretty much out of time, but I had Lord Hermer, I had Rachel Reeves, I had Andy Burnham, I had David Lammy, I had Keir Starmer, all kind of rolled into one, I suppose you could say, because they all are part of this hopeless, ghastly, useless Labour government, both outgoing and incoming. I don't think it really makes any difference. But I think it's got to be done. It's got to be said, because, I mean, she doesn't get there very often. I think it's got to be Stella Creasy in the parakeets this week, isn't it? I mean, she is by far and away, I think, head and shoulders and beak above everybody else, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, the most planky behaviour we've seen for a while, Mike. A very deserved winner.
Yeah, and I think there's a pretty good chance that she'll tweet about it. When I put out the fact that she's won Plank of the Week, she'll probably claim some kind of terrible, discrimination case against me and hire all sorts of lawyers to, stop me harassing her or something in Walthamstow. I'm thinking of going to Walthamstow actually soon, just to wander around in the park and see if I can meet her.
The park's got an island as well, Mike. I mean, I didn't realise that. So
the island section is intriguing, isn't it? The Walthamstow Park Island. You kind of go in. The last island I saw in Walthamstow was a bus island when you come out the tube. That's all there is, But anyway,
listen, much more glamorous than I remember it, for sure. Yeah. But Mike, you should go there, wander around, and just ask everybody. Say that you've lost your parrot, and has anybody seen it?
Maybe I'll get one of those, those comedy parrots, and just stick it on my shoulder and walk around with the pirate's hat on. Actually, this is a great idea. We're going to do that next week. So we're going to do it.
That is a great idea.
Paul Cox, Mark Littlewood, brilliant to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Brilliant World Cup as well, by the way. I can say that again. Plank of the Week is Stella Creasy. Well done, Stella. Paces of 8. Paces of 8. Paces of 8. Plank of the Week. See you later.